Good evening. Welcome to the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque's Board of Trustees regular meeting. I am Mayor Donald T. Lopez. I'm calling the meeting to order. The time is 7 p.m. I would ask our one Boy Scout to bring the flag forward, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please come forward and please stand. Post the color. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may go to the back. Thank you. Thank you very much. We had one Boy Scout tonight, and that's very nice. At this time, I want to move to item 3 and call the roll. Trustee Mayor Pro Tem Pacheco.
Present.
Trustee Benavides.
Present.
Trustee Lewis is excused. Trustee Radnovich.
Present.
Item 4 is approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda. Can I just state the motion?
Yes.
So I make this motion to amend the agenda by deleting and deferring item 10A to the July 2022 Board of Trustees meeting.
Thank you. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Does any member of the governing body wish to recuse themselves? Okay. Trustee Pacheco.
No.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries 2-1. Now I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended. I need a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended. And Mayor, can I back up just a minute?
Absolutely.
Should I have recused myself? I wasn't quite sure what you were asking in terms of.
Perhaps I could have been more clear. I think yes.
Okay, can we amend that to?
Let's go back.
Okay.
Let's go back. So let me start all over again. I'm going to call for the roll call vote on item 4. And this is for the motion to amend and defer item 10A to the July 2022 BOT meeting. Does any member of the governing body wish to recuse themselves?
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Now we can move to 5. Now I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I need a second.
Second.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Does any member of the governing body wish to recuse themselves?
No.
No.
Trustee Pacheco.
No.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we move to item 5, which is the public comment period. Submitted written comments on topics that do not appear on the agenda will be read by the clerk. Danielle, do we have any written comments?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor and trustees, my name is David Montoya, 517 Pueblo Solano Northwest. Mayor Lopez and trustees, after Paseo del Norte was built, the village of Los Ranchos had a management agreement with Bernalillo County and NM State to water and manage this Del Norte area. Unfortunately, it was mismanaged and vegetation, including the trees, died. Because only the owner of a property is entitled to the $425 per acre for fallowing, I believe I may have a solution to keep some of the trees alive. The 12 acres next to the walking path is owned by Bernalillo County. This area could be irrigated as part of the ongoing maintenance agreement to keep this vegetation alive. In this way, the VLR will still benefit from the fallowing program, and the trees will be kept alive for village residents to enjoy. I don't understand if the VLR thinks the fallowing program is such a good idea. Then why wasn't it implemented at the Agri-Nature Center as well? That area is thriving, green, and beautiful, while the vegetation at Del Norte feels already showing signs of stress. The north end of the village will be a dust bowl. Why such a disparity? this is wrong. That's the only written comment received tonight, Mayor.
Okay, before I get to the next comment, I'm going to say that we have our agricultural program manager here tonight. This is not an item that's on the agenda, so there can't be any discussion about it. But I will tell the governing body, I have a memorandum I will present to the trustees during trustee informal discussion. And if our agricultural program manager is here, he'll be able to answer questions on this subject. Okay? Okay, let me move to the next item. Participants wishing to speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda will be given 3 minutes. No action can occur on these items. Danielle, please announce the speakers.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and trustees, first up, we have Mr. David Baird. If you would, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
David Baird, 6916 4th Street is my business address. And I just had a few things on this map. It shows pretty good things here. I have a trailer park here, and it's nice that the village is trying to make sure I keep it clean and no trash around and stuff. I have one dumpster. It gets overloaded.
Mr. Baird, can you get closer to the microphone? I apologize, but we
All right.
can't pick you up.
Okay, so, oh yeah, this gets recorded. So I got some things from the village about how I should clean it up, and most of it's organic, and I'm making mulch out of it. But the trash can does get bad. But then I think the village should really try and lead by example. They've owned a trailer park, they've owned a storage facility. I'm a little embarrassed to be part of the village in the way it's being kept over there. All the doors are open, there's trash everywhere. It's been that way for months. The trash is blowing up in the air. The parks are just a mess. It's all locked up, but there's people have broken into it. I just came by there on my way in here, and there are 3 cops there taking their time, trying to, I don't know, I think people are trying to recover their things or something like that from the past. But I think if you're gonna be a community like a trailer park is, which I've learned a lot over the years about a small community, is you gotta lead by example, and you really gotta, it just doesn't make any sense when you're handing out to somebody that have to clean up some organic material, and right down the street, the trash is just blowing into the air. I think it's ending up in Placitas, but if anybody gets a chance to go by there and take a look at it, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's a complete embarrassment for our village in the way that's being handled over there. Otherwise, I think a lot of things are going good. I don't know if I used my 3 minutes up, but happy spring, and no more elm trees, please.
Thank you, David. Anybody else, Danielle?
Yes, sir, thank you. Joe Craig. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito. I'm glad you guys are sitting down. I just right now have good news. I thought in the midst of our fires and everything else in the nation, we ought to talk a little bit more positive. I've been working, the Friends of Los Ranchos have been working with Jenny Schulte on the Schulte House. The mayor and I met here a couple of weeks ago, and I gave him some of this information. We went down to the Albuquerque Museum and met with Leslie Kim and Jill Hartke, who are the director of history and the photo archivist for the museum. This was part of me bringing some of my family's materials down to the museum that we'd been talking about. But in the midst of the article that we had for the Village Vision, Jenny had given me a photograph. She said, "This is an old photograph, you ought to be looking at it." And after a few days or week, I started looking at it. Turns out it's a historic photograph from the Cobb studio. William Cobb started the studio along with his wife, Edie Ross, who is Edmund G. Ross, the territorial governor's daughter. Emma Albright, fabulous women photographers. So this was an original 1895 photograph that is part of the Schulte collection. I sent them a picture of it, and they were starting to do backflips. I was too. It's the Opera House at 3rd and Railroad, which is Central, that burned down. 1895, the only photograph they have is 1898. Just part of the fabulous collection that is in the Schulte collection. Jenny brought in one rolling suitcase. It's just part, she's got more. I want to just convey to you, they were, the museum wants to do an exhibit, a full exhibit for the Schulte family. It's tied in with they believe with, George, what's the mansion down there in Central? Franz Huning, I'm sorry. Franz Huning's big deal, New Albuquerque. The family were German immigrants, her great-grandfather. It's very, very great history that we can tie in. We can do an exhibit at the Albuquerque Museum, and the Schulte House is just tip of the iceberg of all this history. It fills in this great, great missing link that we have, and Jenny can talk more about it. But I don't know how to convey to you, this is a big deal, and it's, the museum folks were literally drooling over these photographs. Jenny started packing everything up. She said, I'll organize it, I'll bring the rest of the stuff in it. And Leslie and Jill were crestfallen, like they were not going to get it back.
Mr. Craig,
Yes,
my apologies.
that's okay.
If you wouldn't mind wrapping up your
You
thoughts.
bet. I've got one more statement. Jill Hartke, who is the photo archivist, literally grabbed the ill-filled building, the Opera House, to her breast, wouldn't let go of it. And I said, I overstepped Jenny, but I said, yes, you're going to get all of this. It's exciting. It's what we have been looking for in the Agri-Futures, to do a history and agritourism. We can do a German Oktoberfest, and I talked to Dan Gary about it. He's very excited that this brings in such a nice history and event for Los Ranchos. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else, Danielle?
Yes, sir. Ms. Betty Tishish, if you would please approach the podium. And please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Betty Titchich. I live at 6724 Edgewood Drive. Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the village and anyone involved for the interest and investment that you have been taking in Edgewood Park at the corner of Osuna and Edgewood. The neighborhood has not been consulted or apprised on what changes are being made to the park, but we have a couple of requests. If playground equipment is going to be installed, which I heard it was, but I'm not sure.
There's going to be playground equipment, but we have to decide what kind and all of that. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, my request is just that if they put playground equipment in, that they put it on the edge somewhere so we can still have enough open space for people to picnic, throw their frisbees, practice their fly casting, or any other activities that are currently happening in the park, so that the whole thing is not playground. There's a lot of green space left, because it's not a very big park. Also, we are against dogs being banned from the park as they are at Hartnett Park. We're not asking for a dog park. We're just asking that dogs not be banned. Dogs are part of many families, and when a family visits a park, they often want to bring their dogs along. Many neighbors in our area walk their dogs through that park to get to the Chamisal ditch to walk on the ditch. And if dogs are banned, then they're going to have to walk down Osuna because there's no access on our block. And there's already a poop bag station there, but I don't think there's a garbage can, which would be nice if there was a garbage can, especially if you put playground equipment in, which that's probably in the plan, but I don't know. There are no parks in Albuquerque or Rio Rancho that ban dogs. So it's not clear to us why the village bans dogs from Hartnett Park, but we just hope you don't ban them at Evergreen Park. And once again, thank you for caring about the only open space east of 4th Street. We're very glad you're taking an
Thank you,
interest.
Betty. Anybody else? Danielle?
Mr. J.T. Michelson. Thank you. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
Mayor, Trustees, J.T. Michelson, 5001 Rio Grande Boulevard, Northwest. I just want to bring everyone's memory that 4 years ago, last week, we lost Mayor Larry Abraham. That mayor and trustees came up with an awful lot of ideas and things that are improving our village. I also want to thank the current mayor and trustees for going forward on these. It's going to be better and better and better. Thank you all. Let's remember Larry. Thank you.
Thanks, JT. Anybody else?
Ms. Katie Snap. Thank you. Please state your name, address for the record.
Katie Snap, 855 Fairway Road Northwest. Mr. Mayor and trustees, thank you for welcoming me tonight. I am here as the co-chair of the 2022 Lavender Festival, and I wanted to give you a rundown of what we have planned for this year. As you know, this is something that we really cherish in conjunction with the village and the community, and it brings together a really nice couple of days. This year, we're going to repeat the format that we had for last year, which was one day at Hartnett Park on a Sunday, and then the Saturday night before. We're expanding the Saturday night before to include a little bit of a preview of markets, so you'll be able to do a little shopping Saturday night. That will include a ticket, and the ticket includes music, and of course, walking around and using the vendors, we hope you would, but we'll also have food trucks and drinks that night. We also will have the month filled with boutique experiences. We have found this to be a fabulous way of collaborating with North Valley businesses, and we try to cater especially to those that are in the village. Some, for example, will be Kelly Jo Design and Steelbender, and we'll be doing fabulous things with them. And then we'll also have, well, I mentioned the market on Sunday, so the Sunday market is over 100 vendors, and we hope you all come out. I really do have maybe two visions that I would love to share with you. One of them is that Saturday night become very village focused. It's really a great time when you go and you see your neighbors there. So we would love it if village residents saw it as something that they could go enjoy some music together and grab a neighbor and come support a great effort, which is our nonprofit, a 501c3. Funding goes towards local farms, education, and sustainable agriculture, and we help underwrite some of the tuition for the Los Ranchos Farm Camp. And then the last thing is that there are sponsorships available. That's really our gravy, and we make any extra money we make by getting sponsorships. So if you would be willing to be a sponsor, or you want to throw in $200 or $1,000, you do get some benefits with that. lavenderintthevillage.org is our website, and please just be a part of it and support it. Any questions?
Only one. Is there really going to be a dance, or is it just going to be more, not necessarily a dance on Saturday night? I mean, I'm just asking.
Are you asking me to dance?
Yes, I am.
I don't think anyone's going to keep people from dancing. I have seen people jump up and do it. Will there be a dance floor dedicated to that? I'm not sure, but okay. certainly people can jump up and dance.
12 years ago, it was a beautiful dance.
I know.
Okay.
I know. It was fun. And we actually had paid some dancers to come in and dance that were semi-professional, and it made it really fun to watch. So yeah, we would not discourage anybody getting up and doing a little jig.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Anybody else, Danielle?
Ms. Katie Flam. Please state your name and address for the record.
Katie Flam. Oops. Katie Flam, 524 Chamiso Lane. So I read in the Albuquerque Journal some time back that all over Albuquerque, people are complaining because when they call 911, the only time the police show up is when shots are fired. And I'm wondering if that's going on in the village as well. We had an incident on Chamiso Lane, and my husband can explain the details of it because he witnessed it. But my question to everybody here is, we are told to observe if something's going wrong, if there's a crime in progress, please let the police know they need the help. Okay, so that's what we did, and we got no response, and there was a serious crime committed on our street, our lane. I don't see sheriffs like I used to in years past on our streets. I never see them. You know, I feel better when I know there's someone to call. And my question to everyone here is, what does the sheriff's department do in our village? Are they policing the streets of Los Ranchos? Are they going elsewhere? Can we call them? What's going on? Because right now, I don't really feel well protected in the village.
Can I interject very quickly? There's someone in the audience who can answer your question directly, but this is not on the agenda, and that's our Public Safety Officer, Fred Radosevich, right there in the back. This is not on the agenda, so we don't discuss stuff during the public comment period, but I would suggest that you maybe speak to him for a few minutes.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe
outside-
other people
outside that
here would
door.
like to know about that too.
He can answer your questions
Well, my
directly.
question, but maybe other people here
There may be.
would
and that's
like
fine.
to know the answer to that question.
We can't discuss it. We can only discuss this during the trustee informal discussion, which is at the end of the meeting. I don't know if you want to wait around till then. I mean, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you to wait, but you can if you want to. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else, Danielle?
Mr. Brian Flam. Thank you. Please state your full name and address for the record.
Got it. I'm Brian Flam. I live at 524 Chamiso Lane. I'm Katie's husband. I don't have a lot to add to the story, but I was the one that went out into the street, and I witnessed a vehicle at the end of the cul-de-sac, at the beginning of the cul-de-sac on Guadalupe Trail, just lights flashing, parked. They rounded the corner, disappeared. A few minutes later, a truck, a different vehicle, drove down our lane very, very slowly. It seemed somewhat suspicious. So that's what led me to call 911. And they indicated they would dispatch somebody, and of course they didn't. Subsequently, I observed that truck moving at about 1 mile an hour down our lane, all the way to the end of the cul-de-sac. And they subsequently robbed, from what we found out a few days later, hundreds of thousands of dollars of antique merchandise from somebody that lived in that home, and they knew that that house was empty because she was in the hospital. So that's a whole other matter. But this is my second incident in a year, one that affected my business to the tune of about $50,000, where an industrial chiller was hacked, and we knew immediately who stole the copper out of it because I found it at Acme Metalworks. Reported that to Bernalillo County Sheriffs, and who got all excited about this, but they never ended up doing a thing about it. We had the name and the address of that individual. Nothing ever happened. It shut a particular process at my business down for 6 months before we could get the parts replaced. You know, this is the kind of thing that's going on. There's just nobody home when you call. And I understand we can't have a two-way discussion, so I'm just reporting what occurred. It scared the heck out of me, standing around in the bushes at night, trying to see what was going on when it was pitch black, and I was afraid to turn on a
May we contact you to
flashlight.
get more information from you? Because this is the first I've heard of any of this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you need to leave us a
Yes.
telephone number if you don't mind.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay. Anybody else, Danielle?
Yes. Ms. Jenny Schulte Riedel. Thank you. Full name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Vera Jenny Schulte Riedel, 4404 Cactus Hills Place Northwest, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87114. I'm here this evening to give you all an update of the event that we're planning to restore the Schulte House over at the Agriculture Center. And happy to say, we had an amazing two-page ad.
Pretty proud of that.
I know, I'm so excited. In the Los Ranchos Vision, if you haven't seen it, it's pretty amazing. And if you look at the house with the two little children on the side in the dark, it's my dad and my auntie. So that's kind of special. And then the other thing that we had was a Rio Rancho observer. Gary Heron came out and did a 3-hour interview. And we have this that went all over, and I've been getting calls from friends in Rio Rancho about this event. And even today, I had a lady call and ask to be one of the vendors at our event. May 22nd, it's a Sunday. So it's open from 10 to 4, and the vendors set up at 8, from 8 to 10. So it's coming along pretty good. We've got over 30 people, vendors coming. I know it's not as magnificent as your Lavender Festival, but we're working on it. And I just wanted to let you know an update of what we've got going, and to let you also know how grateful I am for the village to be supporting this project, because this is something kind of dear and near to my heart. Being a little tiny girl running through that house, it was huge. It's really, really little, really. And a thank message out to Fergus. For 2.5 years before our hibernation pandemic hit us, we had an amazing dream team that was put together by him to get this thing rolling. And had the pandemic not hit us like it did, we would have had this event already. So I have several different venues to raise funds for this. And so I'm looking forward to doing that, because I do like to raise money for projects. And I want to thank Josh, working at the Agriculture Center, because he's been an amazing person to be around to help us with any suggestions and any help we need. And of course, Joe Craig with Friends of Los Ranchos. If it wasn't for this organization, I'd have to do a whole lot of stuff. So I'm really thankful for them. So thank you, Friends of Los Ranchos, and thank you, the village, for your support. You are appreciated.
You're welcome, Jenny. Anybody else, Danielle?
No, Mayor, that's it for public sign up. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have your name on the list. You want to go ahead and approach the podium?
Welcome, David.
Please state your full name and address for the record.
My name's David Montoya. I live at 517 Pueblo Solano. I wanted to discuss a little bit about 10A. You took it off the docket, and there was...
Can't discuss it at all. It's not on the agenda. Please don't discuss it.
Okay, so I won't discuss that
Please.
specifically, but I'm really concerned regarding the new AC zone that is being implemented and is passed, and the way it's been administered, because what's happening is that there's a lot of people that are going to be disenfranchised. They want to build something that's not 24 units per acre. And this is happening all along 4th Street. Everything along 4th Street, if you have half an acre, you need to build 12 units if you want to live on 4th Street. If you have 1/3 of an acre, you're going to have 6 units. And this isn't the kind of village that we ever dreamed about that we were going to have. And there's some people that still live on 4th Street, and if they want to enlarge, add a casita, bring a mother-in-law quarters, they can't do it. It does not meet the code, and I would like for the village to consider doing something else. Is this really what we want in our village, to have 3-story units? That's planned here. There's others, there's 1/3 of an acre, they're not allowing 2 units on 1/3 of an acre. It's ridiculous. We can't have this because it'll look like downtown, and look what's happened downtown. Homeless have moved in. It's not safe, people don't feel good, and it isn't really, and they'll build right up against 4th Street. We won't have any visibility if they build like we did on El Pueblo. So I would ask that some consideration being to, I understand that people are bringing things to the village, but they don't want to set a precedent to have something smaller than the 24 units per acre. And it's crazy. I live and I grew up, which is the old village. And that is not what we had in mind. It never was. And if we continue down this course, we're going to end up worse than Albuquerque, and we're going to end up with things that we never envisioned we're going to have. 4th Street is not really for this. I think I would like to alarm people or warn people as to what's coming. It's not good for our village. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, Danielle?
Anybody else who did not sign up who'd wish to speak under public comment on items not on the agenda, please approach the podium. With that being none, Mayor.
Okay, we're going to move to item 6, which is approval of minutes. Item 6A is the minutes of the April 1st, 2022 Strategic Planning Workshop. B is the minutes of the April 13th, 2022 regular meeting. Item C is the minutes of the April 14th, 2022 budget session. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Mayor, do these need to be approved separately or all together?
No, all in one.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move to approve the minutes as listed in our packet.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 7 is a proclamation, and let me read part of it. Okay. 7A is proclaiming Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Day, June 5th, 2022. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to read the important part, in my opinion. Whereas 52 years ago, patrons and supporters of the Stonewall Inn, a bar in New York City, resisted police harassment, a condition that had become all too frequent against members of the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community. Out of this resistance, the LGBT rights movement in America was born. And then we go on. Whereas I am proud to observe this proclamation and its great importance, and to present it to Los Ranchos Pride, I will call upon the people of Los Ranchos to turn back discrimination and prejudice everywhere that it exists. Now, therefore, I, Donald T. Lopez, Mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, New Mexico, do hereby proclaim June 5th, 2022 as Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Day, and it's dated today, the 11th of May, 2022. And upon signature, when I sign this document later this evening, we will make sure that the individuals, perhaps you'll be here through the meeting, we'll make sure you get a copy of this proclamation. Thank you. Now I'm going to move to item 7B. Presentation, El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro National Historic Trail, Development Concept Plan, Richard Meadows, Technical Planning Manager, Bernalillo County, Aaron Zom, Principal Landscape Architect, and Christina Warenko, Associate Landscape Architect, MRWM Landscape Architects. Ms. Warenko, are you here? Great. So you can start, and then the others can help you with this presentation. Thank you.
I'm going to let Richard start.
Good. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. I'm Richard Meadows with Bernalillo County, and thank you for having us here tonight to present our development concept plan for El Camino Real National Historic Trail. And with me, Aaron Zahn and Christina Warenko with MRWM are going to present about the plan. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Trustees. I'll let you know when to advance slides. Thanks. So our team recently published a 100% draft development concept plan for El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro National Historic Trail. We're here tonight to give you just a brief overview of the project as we near the end of the public review period and prepare for publishing the final document. The complete plan document is nearly 400 pages long, so we're going to go really quickly and only give you a very high-level summary in the time that we have available with you tonight. The complete document is available on the project website, which is camino-burnco.com. So the development concept plan provides a vision for the preservation and development of a retracement trail following portions of Camino Real National Historic Trail, which we'll refer to as the NHT tonight, that are located within Bernalillo County, the city of Albuquerque, and the village of Los Ranchos. The plan identifies strategic actions, development projects, and infrastructure improvements needed to create a multimodal path that follows El Camino Real NHT as closely as possible. The goal is to create a continuous path for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles. The projects identified within the plan are intended to contribute towards tourism, economic development, and cultural preservation, while paying special attention to the equitable development of community infrastructure. The plan includes guidelines and recommendations for the retracement trail, a list of specific amenities and guidelines for branding, materiality, and design elements to make the trail visible, distinct, and relevant for visitors. The project started in spring of 2020 and just before the pandemic, and is scheduled to be completed in the next month. Next slide. So the project team engaged with the public during the summers of 2020 and 2021. A variety of engagement formats and tools were used to comply with COVID-19 regulations in place at the time. You can see a summary of those efforts on the screen. Some of you may remember seeing us at our booth at the Los Ranchos Growers Market or at an open house we hosted at Bequequi Open Space last July. In addition, we had agency staff meetings with the City of Albuquerque, Parks and Recreation, Bernalillo County Parks and Recreation, the Village of Los Ranchos, APS, and MRGCD. Meetings and communications with Sandia Pueblo and Isleta Pueblo. Presentations to the Greater Albuquerque Active Transportation Committee, stakeholder meetings which included the National Park Service, UNM, and representatives from downtown, the South Valley, and the North Valley, and notices went to neighborhood associations and elected officials. Next slide. Thank you. For planning purposes, the NHT was broken into 3 sections, the North Valley, the Central, and the South Valley. Within the North Valley and the South Valley sections, another division is made between the east and west routes. These refer to parallel routes of the NHT, all of which are retraced in this plan. To safely accommodate all users, cyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles, more than one route is recommended in some locations. Shared routes accommodate all users. Bicycle and pedestrian routes safely accommodate only these modes of transportation, and auto routes are primarily recommended for vehicular traffic. In a moment, we'll review the portions of the recommended alignment and amenities that fall within the jurisdictional limits of the Village of Los Ranchos in a bit more detail for you. Next slide. The NHT covers approximately 22 miles on either side of the Rio Grande within Bernalillo County. It's a braid of routes that shifted up and down the valley with the ever-changing path of the Rio Grande and its frequent floodwaters. The historic trail is shown as a dashed brown line in the graphic on the screen, a little difficult to see in this presentation. The prevailing public opinion was to prioritize locating the retracement trail as close to the NHT as possible. But in addition to that, criteria such as connections to historic and archaeological trail sites, cultural sites, museums, and public spaces, availability of public right-of-way, quality of scenic and historic experience, active transportation value, and quality of recreational and educational value were also used to identify the preferred location of the retracement trail. The plan outlines strategies to coordinate with existing trail efforts and to connect to different public and private stakeholders and agencies. Applicable adopted transportation goals such as complete street strategies are also considered and integrated into the plan's recommendations. Next slide. There are several priority projects identified in the plan, and they're prioritized for a variety of reasons, including the list that's shown on the screen. Many of these projects are improvements to specific sites or are constructed, or they are the construction of retracement trail segments that create bicycle and pedestrian facilities where there are gaps in the existing network. Some of the projects are as simple as adding interpretive media or wayfinding signage to existing facilities. Note that one priority project is the development of a shared route along Rio Grande Boulevard from Chavez Road to Alameda. This is a lengthy segment through the North Valley West section that exactly follows the NHT. And as you're aware, does not safely accommodate pedestrians at the moment. Next slide. So we're gonna flip through these. These are all of the sections that you can find in the plan document that are within the limits of Los Ranchos. Starting in the north end of this segment, just beyond the village limits, the proposed alignment follows Rio Grande south from Bukeki Open Space, where a trailhead with connections to the 50-mile loop trail, Rio Grande Trail, and Bosque Trail are made. Next slide. Further south, you'll notice numerous historic sites within close proximity to the NHT, a public art piece proposed at the existing Shining River open space parking area where a connection is made to the Paseo del Norte Trail. Next slide. Continuing south, a wayside exhibit is proposed at Chamisal Road to interpret the numerous historic sites in the area. And then next slide. Here at Village Hall and at Hartnett Park, a plaza is proposed near the Alfredo Garcia Community Barn, which may include an open area with shade, seating, and interpretive signage. At Chavez Road, the shared route splits into a separate auto route that continues south along Rio Grande and a bicycle pedestrian route that will follow the Griegos interior drain. A lateral connection is suggested at Chavez Road to connect to the North Valley East segment of the NHT, which follows the Alameda Drain Trail on 2nd Street, and the new Village Park, Edgewood Park there on Osuna between 4th and 2nd Street. A destination is proposed at the Los Poblanos Fields, and open space in the Agri-Nature Center could function as a trailhead. Next slide. One more. Sorry, I was going too fast. There's the Agri-Nature Center and Los Poblanos open space. At the southern limits of the village, next slide, a bicycle pedestrian route follows a multi-use trail along a portion of Montano and then heads south on Guadalupe Trail. A rest area with wayfinding exhibits at Griegos and Columbus Park would interpret the area's rich history. And I'll turn it over to Christina to talk about some of the historic sites.
Thanks, Aaron. Next slide, please. The National Park Service and BLM have identified 5 high-potential historic sites along the NHT within the project limits, so within Bernalillo County, between Sandia Reservation and Isleta. One of those includes the historic plaza community/village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque. These sites have a greater emphasis by the National Park Service because of their opportunity to interpret significant history and have higher likelihood of support and funding partnership from NPS. Next slide. A variety of trail amenities are proposed along the retracement trail to provide features that attract users, educate and encourage them to stay on the trail, and reflect the unique cultures and communities through which the trail passes. They vary in scale from simple rest stops with a single bench and sign to linear parks and plazas that can accommodate larger gatherings and events. As discussed earlier, amenities proposed within the village of Los Ranchos limits include a plaza, public art, a wayside exhibit, a destination, and a trailhead. These images on the screen are intended to be generic depictions of these amenities to give a general idea of the elements included, but they vary by each location. It is not the scope of this plan to provide detailed specific designs for these amenities or the interpretive content at each site. Next, please. The proposed retracement trail traverses a wide range of landscapes from bustling urban areas in the heart of the city to scenic rural areas in the north and south valleys. It travels along busy arterial streets, narrow rural roads, and at times along drainage facilities. The retracement trail utilizes existing bike lanes, sidewalks, and multi-use trails where possible. On some roadways, a reconfiguration of the existing right-of-way is required to accommodate the trail. The plan proposes several different trail configurations, and they each consider the context, the route type, and the existing right-of-way. They exemplify how each location may accommodate different trail users, whether traveling on foot, by bicycle, or by car. And a selection of these proposed configurations that are present within the village limits, illustrated as typical trail sections on the screen, are shown. Of note is the proposal to reconfigure Rio Grande Boulevard that Aaron mentioned earlier to have narrower driving lanes, dedicated bike lanes with buffers, and a path and/or multi-use trail on one or both sides of the roadway, depending on available right-of-way. Next, please. When complete, the NHT will be the only continuous north-south multi-use trail that extends from one end of the county limits to the other. And along its path, there are important connections to other existing trails and transit facilities that will enhance multimodal connectivity within the county, as well as to local businesses, public amenities, and places of interest. The plan identifies existing and potential lateral trails that will connect the east and west retracement trails. Chavez and Osuna Road is one of them, which makes an east-west connection between Rio Grande and the Alameda Drain Trail at 2nd Street, crossing 4th Street corridor in the center, and going by the new park as well. Next, please. As a National Historic Trail administered by the National Park Service National Trails Office, the NHT has an existing unique logo and signage standards that are in use along portions of the trail's length. These standards ensure that each trail segment reads as a part of a larger trail that runs through the entire state of New Mexico. The trail-specific logo features a pair of oxen pulling a carreta in front of a colorful background. You can see it in the bottom left corner is the official NHT logo. In addition to NHT standard signage, unique identity and trail branding has been created as a part of this plan for use along the retracement trail through Bernalillo County. It is independent of, but influenced by, the existing El Camino Real NHT logo. Standard NHT signage will be used along the length of the retracement trail with the addition of unique trail branding elements in selected instances such as on posts and monument bases. In addition to road and pedestrian signs, NHT site identification and entrance signs serve to alert the public to the fact that they have arrived at a trail-related site. They can be standalone signs, either standard or customized, to include monument bases. For Bernalillo County, a custom monument base has been designed to create visual connections for the public between NHT sites located throughout the county. Next, please. The plan document includes preliminary project costs that are summarized by project segment, priority, jurisdiction or project partner, plan section, and improvement type. Costs shown in the summary table include both bike and pedestrian facility improvements and amenities and wayfinding improvements. However, when funding is limited, it may be possible to construct bike and pedestrian facilities prior to amenities and wayfinding. So separate costs for these categories are identified in the document appendix with a detailed breakdown. When the NHT retracement trail improvements identified in this plan are contingent on other currently funded or planned roadway and trail improvement projects, this is also identified in the appendix. These improvements must happen concurrent to or after other infrastructure projects, and those project costs are not included in the summary table and scope of this plan. Next, please. So next steps, right now we're at the 100% draft development concept plan. The document has been available for viewing and comment on the project website, which is camino-burnco.com, for the past 2 months. The required 60-day public review period concludes next week, at which time we'll review any comments received with the project stakeholder group for possible inclusion in the document. Final presentations will be made to Bernalillo County Commission on May 24th and the Albuquerque City Council on June 6th, where we anticipate it will be formally adopted. Now, that was a lot of information very quickly, but we'd be happy to take any questions.
So Christina, I noticed that May 17th is the end of the 60-day public review period. That only leaves us 60 days to review some of this and offer comments if there are any. I guess one question that I would have, do some of these documents exist in 24 by 36 so you could put them on poster boards? Is that possible?
They don't currently, but we could provide a poster board if that would be helpful.
Well, here's my suggestion. I would like to have this available not only at the growers market at Los Ranchos, but also at the Agri-Nature Center. And I think it would be a whole lot better if we had 24 by 36 on poster board so that the folks can walk up to it and at least be able to examine it a little more closely. Not that we're going to get comments to you by the 17th of May. I mean, I really don't know. That's right around the corner. But nevertheless, because Bernalillo County and City Council of Albuquerque are going to be reviewing, you know, if there are comments, we'd like to get them sooner rather than later. So when can you get me the 24 by 36? Maybe that's my question.
We actually have a couple of boards like that introduce the project and provide a QR code and the web address so somebody can scan the code and go to the website where the whole document can be linked to. And that also provides a comment form they can fill out right there on the website to send an email with any thoughts. So we can get that to you tomorrow.
Thank you. That'll be a big help. Okay. Does the governing body have any questions, comments about this?
Well, I like your idea of promoting it at the growers market. Perhaps we could offer them a booth.
Again, that's something we'll have to talk about. I'd like to see the poster board first.
Oh, but
nevertheless, yes.
I mean, there could be questions, and
of course,
if somebody from the county was there, they could answer better than we could, right?
Well, that's true. I don't know if you all come to the growers market or not, but there's a huge crowd there on Saturday morning from 8 till noon.
We were there once last summer, this past summer 2021, and we got a lot of interest and comments. So that was a great venue. We don't have any current plans, but we can discuss those.
It's every Saturday, so you actually between now and perhaps early June, you might be able to make at least one of those Saturday morning events, you know, with your information. I think it would be useful. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Anybody else from
Mayor, I do have a couple of questions. So obviously this is, the draft is going to be kind of completed by the dates that you're showing here. What's the long-term, I mean, when will we start to see some of this happen?
Well, all of the pieces will be constructed, not necessarily in any particular order. It will depend on funding, which jurisdiction has funding for certain projects. Some of the projects that are already in the works that we would like to add signage and interpretive branding to are the reconstruction of Isleta Boulevard from I-25 to Durand. And there was a recent reconstruction of 2nd Street, which we'd like to add signage to. It goes right to Valle de Oro, the National Wildlife Refuge.
Richard can probably mention some of the ones that just got funded recently. Do you want to mention those?
Yes, Mayor and trustees, there are some projects that are already in the works in Bernalillo County as well as City of Albuquerque that are in the plan where we can start to brand them and sign them. And things such as Alameda Drain Trail along 2nd Street is in the plan. Sandia Ranch on Edith is in the plan. So there are some areas where you'll start to see the trail being interpreted. And then, of course, you know, the county would love to partner with the village if you want to pursue any of the projects that are identified in the plan,
We
along
may be
Rio Grande.
interested. We may
Okay.
be interested, yes.
Sure. So anyway, I think this is the start of a discussion that can continue about how we want to implement the plans.
So are we looking 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road? What for this to be
I
up to
think it will
completion?
take many years to complete this,
And you're looking for money from the jurisdictions where the projects will
Correct.
reside.
But, like along Rio Grande Boulevard, parts of it are in the county, parts of it are in the city. Griegos Drain, the same thing, so there may be opportunities to partner along those trail segments.
As well as with the National Park Service.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the governing body?
I just wanted to say, Mayor, good job on the project, and it looks great. I think the village should pursue at least some of this work. We're doing quite a bit of work already.
Yes.
But I think there's some really good concepts.
Yes.
And directions.
Yes.
In this plan, Mayor and trustees. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very, very much.
No questions from the public?
It's not on the agenda for public comment. I mean, I would suggest that, how long are you going to be here?
As long as we need to be.
I would suggest you go out that door, and if you have some questions, these people are available to answer the question. We need to move on with the meeting. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Item 8 is departmental reports. The departmental reports are included in the packet and reflect all activities as listed. If the governing body has questions for staff regarding their reports, we will have each trustee ask all of their questions before we move to the next trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have quite a few questions and comments. First of all, on your report, and I don't know if this would be better answered by Maria during her report, but I was just wondering if we could get a sense of the timeline on the Chavez Road project. Would you
Maria, do you
rather
want
me
to
wait?
answer that question? Yeah.
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, so we just received the notification of award for the multi-use trail on Chavez Road, which is for preliminary engineering, the right-of-way study, and preliminary engineering design. We submitted the acceptance of award letter last week, and now we just wait till they give us a notification to submit what's called an ARF, a request for funding form, and that kicks off the project. So I don't have a date on when that will be, but as soon as we have an agreement, it will be before the Board of Trustees to approve for the mayor's signature.
Thank you. Okay, this is just a comment on Old Village Hall, and I know Anne's not here tonight to talk about it, but I just feel like the design is a great reflection of that neighborhood on Green Valley, the way it's looking to us as presented. I just want to encourage the neighbors of that neighborhood to come forward and provide their feedback with regard to that particular building. I think it's going to be a great place for the community to gather, to play games, whether it be inside or outside. I just think it would be great to get a lot of the neighbors' comments on that. And let's see, as far as Edgewood Park goes, again, I just want to say how much I love that I love seeing to see the continued improvements to our parks in the village. This is one that really has not had a whole lot on it, but it's had a lot of people on it. And I think it's just great that we are investing in our open space with these parks. And
Can I say something? I just think it would be nice if the village involved the neighborhood in the planning.
well, and I think
I mean, there's plenty of opportunity to contact us. We've had no input.
Is there a neighborhood association?
No, there is not. But
Well, see, that's the reason why.
Oh, no, listen.
Okay, I'm listening.
I know that Ann knows several people. In
Okay.
She could call us.
Okay.
We could get a group. We could
We'll
get
do
the
that.
neighborhood together.
You have my promise.
Well, the way I understand it, the plans have already been done.
No, they have not. They're not complete. They are absolutely not complete. So we'll get in touch with you, okay?
It's a small village.
Yes, that's
And I
right.
think there should be some flow of information between the residents and what the city manager is planning.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Let's see, the property with the trees that we're talking about at Hartnett Park, where are those, whose property are those trees on?
Well, that's a good question, and I know Ann knows. Do you know, Maria? Because King's not here right now. He knows too.
Mayor Trustee, I do not.
Okay,
Okay, we'll find out.
okay.
Yeah, we'll
All right.
find out.
Let's see. Just a comment on the Del Norte property. You know, I think we're all continuing to look for solutions and ideas for this property. But with the current situation with the drought, really our best case scenario is that we pray for rain and hope that we get it in the next few months. Let's see. I also want to say thank you for the effort from Keen and his team to help clean up the area on Paseo del Norte. In that area there, it's been an eyesore for a long time. I've noticed trash every time I'm driving up and down that street. And I also would like to mention that there is a gentleman that is often out there picking up trash on both sides of the road. And I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but I think we owe him a really special thank you, because you do take your life in your hands when you're on that road. So if there's anybody that might know who he is, I think it'd be great to recognize him. This is just a comment on the business economic development. You know, we're working together and diligently in putting together thoughts and ideas for the 4th Street businesses to help them thrive. We've had a number of meetings, and I think we're making great progress in working together with the businesses to find economic opportunity on the 4th Street corridor. So super excited about that. And let's see, Josh, this one is for you. And this is the comment on the fence for the sheep. So I'm just curious as to, obviously you're super busy with a lot of things, but are we planning to do more livestock on the property? And if so, are we kind of integrating that into our teachings? Are we going to teach shearing, or, you know, where are we in terms of the livestock piece?
Thank you, Mayor, Trustee Pacheco. Yeah, so as of this evening, the sheep are back on the property inside that fenced area. We do integrate that into our programming. So this past year, we had shearing workshops, we had butchering workshops, we had a workshop on integrating livestock into your small farm, and we also have been doing beekeeping workshops and those kind of things. So we also, when we have children, we go out to the sheep, we talk about them, we talk about raising sheep. We had a workshop on rotational grazing as well, intensive rotational grazing. We are talking about doing more livestock, dependent on budget. We would like to get some chicken tractors, mobile coops, to move them around behind the sheep and rotate them on that space. We have about 2 acres fenced in, and we use electric fencing within that space so that we can keep them in a small area and rotate them and let the pasture rejuvenate. It's all been replanted in new pasture grasses so that we can have that in permanent pasture for livestock.
Thank you very much. I missed a lot of that, sorry. But I think it's fabulous, and I mean, being right here where we are and what we do and what our people have done in the past, it just seems to fit perfectly. So thank you for explaining that. I think that's it, Josh. Okay. And then just wanted to say welcome to Michelle, and that we look forward to working with her. And thank you to Thomas, who's out there diligently, you know, checking things within our community, which is a hard job, I know, and just wanted to say thank you. And I just wanted to ask one question of Tiffany with regard to the solar. It just seems like there appears to be more and more activity around solar. Is that just happened to be this month or presented this month, or are you seeing more?
Trustee Pacheco, Mayor, trustees, these numbers are everything that just happened in April. So if you're
Wow.
seeing a trend, then there's definitely a trend. Some months there are more new builds, fences, demolitions compared to others. Clearly, everybody's wanting to gear up for summer with solar.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see. Maria, I think you answered my question. I guess this one really is in regard to the drawings of the second phase. Do you want me to just hold off until we get to the
It would be
presentation on
better.
asking those
It would be better,
questions?
yes.
Okay. And I think that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, sorry, before you go on, Ann did let me know that the trees you were asking about, they are on the Leary's property.
So are then they would be responsible, or?
That's my
That is a
understanding.
discussion that's ongoing, I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you, Tammy. Any further questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Trustee Benavides, your turn.
Yeah, so, I have some questions for Fred Radosevich, if you don't mind. Just looking at your department report. Okay, so the Caballero North Group Park issues, and there's a park there, I'm assuming that's what you mean. What are those issues?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, those are the ongoing issues of noise in the park, renting the facilities. We met with them a couple of weeks ago to try and come up with some ideas on how we can minimize some of their complaints. One of the ideas is whenever we have any events going on at the barn, that we will put that on our website, that there will be events going on. And so they kind of know what's a formal event and what's not. We're looking at some new signage in the park, and then trying to work with the neighbors to try and minimize some of that.
Oh, okay. I was thinking you were talking about a park in the Caballero.
No, I'm sorry, it's actually Hartnett Park.
Okay, it's Hartnett Park, okay.
Right.
Yeah, and actually there's a park on
I'm sorry.
the south end of Caballero. Maybe there's not one in the north end.
No, there's not.
Okay. Okay, so the noise, the source of the noise would just people out and about? Or?
A lot of that's just people using the park. And the neighbors have had issues with that for, well, I've been in the village over 10 years, and the village constantly gets calls on, we don't want all that noise going on in the park. And so we're trying to work with them on certain events, and the same thing with the rental of the barn. There's been discussions that they don't think the barn should be rented because the noise. But we're trying to work with them to just try and minimize any inconveniences, but also get them to understand that it is a village park and there's going to be people in the park.
Is it late at night or is it during?
It's all hours.
I mean, okay. I mean, is it? I mean, to me, it would be different if it was like people were making noise after 10 p.m. versus.
Well, some of that's true too. They're having some of those issues, and so we're also looking at putting some solar-powered motion lights around the barn.
Yeah.
To light things up if people are there. The other thing, we've had issues with the gate in Hartnett Park lot not being locked at night and on the weekends, so people are actually going in there, and we just got to make sure that those gates are locked so that people cannot get in there.
So have you measured the noise? That'd be my next question. We're going to be talking about dB.
We're going to be talking about your conversation of mine at 10 o'clock at night is a violation of our current noise ordinance.
Right. But have you measured it?
No.
Based upon the current ordinance, noise ordinance?
No.
50 dB. So So do you think we ought to measure it to see where it is? I mean,
Well, I can tell you, and we'll talk about this, I think, when you discuss the ordinance. I think we provided a chart to you that normal conversation is over 50 decibels.
well, yeah, I mean, I got a list of things like, like electric toothbrush, being around 55 decibels, yeah. I mean, we'll have that discussion later, I suppose. Well, I mean, you have other issues. I guess we can talk about noise ordinance, or should we wait till later?
Let's wait till we get to the noise ordinance, please.
Okay, so let me go to the next one, and I think that's, let me see, that might not be you. Yeah, that's going to be on page 79. It's a budget issue. Almost there.
Steve, might I mention something about something that you brought up?
Sure.
Because I wasn't planning to mention it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think part of the noise, I'm just guessing, during the day anyway, maybe at night, is that the playground is right up next to the.
And it's always been there.
I know it has.
Yeah.
But kids make noise. I mean,
Sure.
that kind of noise, I get happy when I hear.
Yeah,
it.
children
But-
noise, yeah.
Right, but not everybody does, so.
Which gets to my point, not all noise is created equal, right? But we'll talk about that later. Okay. Thanks. Well, no, actually, while I have you here, I mean, I don't know if we could talk about police patrolling.
He's up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, we talked about this before, and, I would like to see our county sheriffs being a little more proactive. I think a lot of people have noticed a decline in the police patrolling different residential neighborhoods. And, I just feel like we ought to put a little more effort behind that.
So, sure. A couple things, Mayor and Trustee Benavides. Number one, I will tell you there's not a law enforcement agency in the country today that is fully staffed. We're experiencing very severe shortages. Currently, the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department is 40 deputies short.
Yeah.
And again, so one of the things I've asked Captain Romero, actually, he will be here in the June meeting to meet with you all. And that will be a good topic for discussion.
Oh, okay, fair enough, thank you. Okay, yeah. Next question, is a budget-related question. I don't
Thank
know
you,
if it's-
Fred.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's best for Will or Tammy, but
Do you
I'm
want to
looking
do
at-
it during the budget, or do you want to do it now?
Because
we're gonna get to the budget.
We can do it during the budget. Let's do
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Then that's all, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Radnovich.
Thank you, Mayor. I said this before, and I'll just say it again. I think that, and this is on your report, Mayor.
Sure.
I think that Chavez Road is a really important road.
It is.
Connection
It
between
is.
4th Street and the end of Chavez Road to the west. And I still believe that it shouldn't be an engineering kind of project. It should be an urban design kind of project.
Let me offer a caution with that. And Nan Winter can pipe in. Under New Mexico law, any public works project that's over $50,000 has to be under the supervision of a registered professional engineer. That doesn't mean that the owner cannot specify what kind of design they want, okay? But it's gotta be under a PE. So whether you wanna call it engineering or not, it has to be under New Mexico law, it must be under. And this will be over 50,000, I guarantee you it'll be over 50,000.
I agree with you, Mayor, but I do think there are many projects that are over $50,000. I've participated in quite a few that aren't engineer-led. And there's a difference between
Then
engineer-led.
they're in violation of the law. Attorney Nan Winter, can you pipe in on this? Because you and I have had this conversation several times. Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, the mayor is correct on the citation to the law. Anything over $50,000 requires an engineer, and I can give you the citation on that. I think my observation is that you might be talking past each other in terms of you know, aesthetics versus engineering, but no doubt you always have to have an engineer supervise. And Maria can probably.
Which, cite me the law. if you could.
61-23-6. I can cite it to you because I read it every single day. And because I'm an engineer, and I'm the only professional engineer who's a mayor in the entire state of New Mexico, so that gives me a different perspective. You know, I'm just trying to be honest. So, Maria, you have a comment on that,
I
please.
do, Mayor. Thank you very much. Trustee Radnovich, Mayor, I think, George, we can certainly address any concerns you have. This is funded through a trails program. And the goal of this project is to develop a trail that is in the context and specific character to Los Ranchos. We have on engineering retainer services agreements, professional services agreements, engineers and landscape architectural firms. And as long as the final construction documents are stamped by a licensed engineer, we'll be good with any public works project.
Exactly.
But, and I will also say that the lead doesn't necessarily have to be an engineer.
That's correct.
It could be one of our architects that's on retainer services, and as long as they have an engineer on staff.
On team.
On the team.
On team, yes.
Not on staff.
On the project. I should say on the project.
I don't need to hear all of that. I'm just saying, Mayor.
Of course.
That there are firms that are good at doing these kinds of projects.
understand that.
That have trail planners, landscape architects. I brought up tool design the last meeting. And there are firms that are engineer-centric.
Yes.
And there's a difference.
Of course there is.
So it's not about the stamp. It's about what kind of professional is doing the project.
Well, let's think about this a little bit more, because you're raising a really good point.
Mayor?
Go ahead, Maria.
In our selection, in our RFP process, we covered all of these topics.
Right.
And actually, the gentleman who is standing up here with the Camino Real plan is one of the retainer architects.
Very good.
Mara Reardon Wilkinson Miller, who's doing this massive project along the Camino Real, is on retainer services. We will solicit proposals from all. If they don't satisfy the goals of the project, we will RFP for professional services.
And the other thing that I want to point out is the design of the project has to meet the village's desire. In other words, the governing body is going to have a say. And so there's no reason why these firms that she's talking about can't design the project to our satisfaction and still have the engineer stamp the drawings.
Yes.
Which is the law. It's the law. That's all. So I think it's a team. It's cooperation is what it is.
Yeah, I don't really care about the stamp. I'm saying that.
I do, but that's okay.
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 And I'm not looking for an argument.
No, I
I'm just
understand that,
saying that the project should be led by an urban designer.
And it can be. It can be, absolutely.
And there's a difference between an urban
And
designer.
I happen to agree with
and
that
a
too.
landscape architect and an engineer.
I hear that too. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Could you explain this more fully? There's a paragraph under 4th Street that says, we will be applying for federal infrastructure funding by May 23rd. The request will be for construction of the entire roadway from Pueblo Solano to Ortega. We were advised by the Deputy Secretary of the New Mexico Department of Transportation and Secretary Bianca Ortiz Wertheim that a federal application is necessary to trigger discretionary funds from the state. We will keep you informed on our efforts. What does that federal application consist of?
Maria, you have the answer to that.
Mayor, Trustee Radnovich, the application is due the 23rd of May. I'm in the process of completing it now. It's a typical Federal Highway Administration application basis. It is the Build Back Better program of President Biden and the U.S. Congress. So that's what that is. And it's a combined application for 3 potential funding sources.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I will add to that, Trustee Radnovich. Trustee Pacheco and Simon, myself, set up a meeting with Bianca Ortiz Wertheim and the NMDOT to find out where this money is available. And so they are the ones who have then moved on to the governor's office, and they gave us information that allowed us to proceed with this grant application. In other words, it's not money that they're just gonna hand out to everybody because you have to apply for it, and you have to meet criteria. Sure. I mean, that's a bottom line. Go ahead.
Yay on the neighborhood feedback that Trustee Pacheco mentioned. I think that's a really good idea for both Edgewood Park and for, you mentioned, the old Village Hall. So just wanted to say that. I've asked a few times now for the Agri-Nature Plan roadway, and I've been given the concept, but not the roadway. And it looks like now the roadway plan is finally getting to be a plan.
Is the plan ready, Maria?
96% complete as of today. We had final comments with Knight CV and myself today. We will have the final plans, we are told, either late next week or early the following week.
May I see them?
Of course.
And the roadway plans as well.
This is the roadway plan.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
It's the whole thing.
Okay,
Yes.
I thought Bohannon Houston was doing the roadway.
They are.
Under Night CV.
Well, they
Yes.
are. They're working
Knight
with Night CV,
yes.
aren't they?
Yes.
Yes.
I see. I'd love to see those.
As soon as they're available, I will make sure you have them.
Again, I think it should be a narrow roadway and very,
One of the things we did today was narrow it even more.
good, that's great. On the Del Norte property, I have a little disagreement. Myself and Trustee Benavidez met with a few of the neighbors near the Del Norte property. And it says in our notes about that we're going to provide water to the Cottonwoods where possible.
Well, Josh O'Halloran is here. He can probably answer your question directly, unless, I'm not sure what your question is, but he's
Right.
here.
Let me finish, Mayor, and
Go
then
ahead.
maybe you will.
Yeah.
There are cottonwoods both in a copse of trees near the old homestead that is between Rio Grande and I believe it's the Griegos lateral. Is that right? Chamizal lateral. And that copse of trees is very far from the ditch, and it's closer, but still somewhat far from our pump station there in the open space, our well, I should say. Those trees look pretty good, but I don't think they should be let to go alone without irrigation and fallowed with the rest of the fields. I think they should be irrigated.
Okay.
And it's true also for the cottonwoods along Paseo, which are on the back side of the noise berm, the north side of the noise berm as well, which look even worse. So I think the elms could probably survive okay, and as you know, they're not a very they're not very fragile, thank you, tree. But the cottonwoods, I think it's really important if we let everything else go fallow, that those cottonwoods be irrigated.
Well, Josh, why don't you come forward? I mean, you have the answer to this question, in my opinion. Please tell us.
Thank you, Mayor and Trustee Radnovich. Yeah, so those cottonwoods on the along Paseo, as you know, those haven't been watered for years. And so I think that shows that these cottonwoods can go a season without being watered because it's been years since those have been watered. Now, should they be watered? Absolutely. They would. It would help them a lot. And I've talked with Keene, and we're looking into running like polyline from our well to be able to put in, to be able to water those trees. And I think that would be a good thing to do. And I'm going out there weekly to see if there's any cottonwoods that are experiencing stress. I think, you know, if the fallowing program just being one season, if they experience some stress, as you know, that makes trees send their roots deeper and will actually can strengthen the tree in the long run. But if it goes too far, then it can be dangerous. And so that's why we have the capabilities with our well there to run polyline, bubblers. We can also do, I have a rain gun with 2-inch line that can cover a large area at a time. So we can water those trees as needed from our well.
And that's our commitment. That is our commitment. Okay?
We won't necessarily water out every elm tree there, but yes,
No,
definitely
the cottonwoods are what
the
I'm.
cottonwoods, yeah.
And there are some other trees that aren't cottonwoods or aren't elms, not the desert willows, that need to be watered as well.
Yeah, and also along the pathway where it's not the managed agricultural space, it's just the maintained space along the pathway that will be watered from the ditch this season. That's not part of the fallow program. And so there's quite a bit.
That's the field west of the ditch?
It's just north of the kind of the roadway and pathway, like when you come in.
Oh, I see.
Along there, there's two, they're kind of sunken.
Excellent.
But yeah, where the blue grama grass is, those kind of things, those
Please keep
can
the
get
water
watered.
coming. That's great. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it, Josh. It shouldn't say where possible, I guess is what I'm saying. It should be a given.
It's a given. It's our commitment.
That's great. Thank you, Mayor. I was also really pleased at the amount of solar work that's going on, Tiffany, so that was just a happy moment to just see all that. And I'll wait on 4th Street and this is under Fred's report. Sorry to bring you up here again, Fred. Under the other issues, I was wondering, what are the trailer park issues? There's probably so many that you.
I think Mr. Baird was talking about the trailer park, the issues that we're having with being
Mr.
vacant.
Baird's trailer park.
No, not the Bears, but our trailer parks.
Oh.
We're working, actually, my understanding is the demo permits are in the final stages, and we should be getting all of that property demolished very shortly and cleaned up.
That's great.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned big gyms. Is that the signage?
The big gyms is, we're working on them on the parking to keep it off of Rio Grande. Tiffany and I and Ann met with them, and actually we're scheduling a meeting in the very near future to finalize those, and also they're looking at renting the Agri-Nature Center for parking, and they will be then shuttling people to the big gyms from there.
Nice. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we're going to move to item 9, financial. Go ahead. Please, come on up. Go right ahead.
Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito. Thank you, Mayor, Trustees. This, I think, relates to our Del Norte open space, but it also relates to our Agri-Nature Center. I was down this week, and Josh was taking care of his bees, so I stopped and watched him in the outfit, and he was putting a new queen in. Really fascinating. Underneath one of the big cottonwood trees there, nice and shady. And Josh made a statement that the cottonwoods, I believe, were self-trimming, self-pruning. And I looked up, and there's a great big limb overhanging where he was at. And I said, Josh, maybe we got to do something. And it was sort of scary. So that takes me to my next sort of statement. Governor Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, if you've not noticed, is in a wheelchair. He was a liability lawyer jogging in Houston. One of the big oak trees on the city of Houston's property fell on him. This may be a question sort of for you. I think as we are following our sites and looking at a sort of major drought, what are our liability issues? Trustee Benavides and I walked down the path at the Del Norte site. I mean, we're talking about this. A lot of overhanging cottonwood branches. I don't know if we ought to haul Nan Winter out there with our gator or something and take a look at the trees. But if they fall, they're going to fall. They're going to self-prune. And if there's a lot of people walking out there, our liability issues may be getting pretty substantial.
We'll take note of that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
You bet. Okay, we're going to move to item 9, financial business, discussion and approval of the April 2022 cash report. Treasurer Will Fisher.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Before you is the cash report for April 30th, 2022. The ending cash balance as of April 30th, 2022 is $9,555,083.16, which is an increase of $172.55 for the month. Sorry. And year-to-date excess over revenues over expenditures. Revenues over expenditures is $2,359,674. A couple of items for unusual and significant items that I'll hand over to Ms. Tammy.
Mayor, trustees, for the cash report for April 30th, 2022, the unusual or significant items, there are 3. The first is you will see a large payment that went out from the general fund fire to the fire protection EMS services to Bernalillo County for $113,300. This is our final payment for their services for fiscal year 2022. And you can see that in the check register as check 1299. The second item is in the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. You will see a payment of $19,080 to Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. This was for the purchase of bulletproof vests for officers. This is one of 3 invoices you'll see, and this is part of the MOU that we have with them. You can see that in the check register as check 1298. And the last item is also from the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. You will see a payment of $7,800, payment to Ralph Geiselman for the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office training. That is part of the LEPF expenditures that we are expending this fiscal year, and this is in the check register as check number 1361.
Thank you, Tammy. Before we get to questions or discussion from the governing body about the cash report, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the cash report.
I need a second. Now, is there any discussion from the governing body on anything in the cash report? Go ahead.
I just have one comment on the gross receipts tax again. It appears that the month of April saw a tremendous growth in gross receipts. I don't think we saw that kind of jump since last August. And I mean, just based on P&Z permits, those kind of things, it looks like construction's moving, people are getting out and they're spending money. So I just wanted to just mention that.
Sure. Okay. Any more questions or discussion from the governing body?
Yes, I have some questions. I have actually a lot of questions, but I'm going to take a lot of those questions offline at some point. I still struggle with this, the budget report. So let me just ask a simple question on page 67, the cash report summary.
Right.
So the ending cash balance, $9,555,000 basically, and then you say there's the increase. You give the increase amount of $172,000. So here's what I struggle with. So if I look at the previous month, the ending cash balance was $9,465,377. In that delta, the difference between the two would be like 89,705. But however, you say the increase is 172,000. What am I missing?
So Mayor Trustee Benavides, so there may be a couple things. There was a correction to last month's cash report numbers. Are you looking at the corrected number?
Well, I'm okay for this, the current one, I'm looking, yeah, I think I'm looking at what's in my packet, yeah.
Okay, so there was a correction though to the packet from last month. So the number you're looking at
Okay.
may not be the correct one. It
That
was
could-
done during the meeting and we gave the corrected one to Danielle that is posted.
Okay.
So that may be
It could be,
the
okay.
answer for that.
Thank you for that. And then, let's see, on page 79. Oh, stupid thing went away, hold on. 79, okay, here, let's see.
Well, 79 is the bar. That's the next item.
Oh, is it the next item?
Yeah, the bar is the next item on the agenda.
Okay, then I shall wait.
Any other questions?
I have none.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Great. Item B now, discussion and approval of resolution number 2022-05-01, budget adjustment request. CFO Tammy Silva.
Mayor Trustees, before you is Resolution 2022-05-01. This is for a budget adjustment request for the budget, the fiscal 2022 budget. And this is required by the state when we make any adjustments and also required by the board when we move from department to department. What this bar is doing is it is moving money from our capital expenditures into our maintenance fund. The reason for this is because we are not completing one of our capital expenditures by June 30th, and we will be putting speed bumps on Guadalupe Trail. And so in order to do this and not exceed our expenditure budget, which would make us non-compliant with the state, we are just moving funds from one line item to the other. And I stand for any questions on that.
Okay, before we get to questions, I do need a motion.
I'll make a motion. Sorry.
No, go.
Okay. To approve resolution number 2022-05-01.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Now, is there any discussion from the governing body about this bar?
Yeah, I do have a question,
Sure.
finally.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm wondering if I'm seeing this correctly. So we have two lines here, and there was an increase of 35,000 to the maintenance roadways, and you sum the original with the increase, and it comes out to the revised budget. And then the capital expenditure, we have a decrease, but again, the two numbers were summed, and there was not, shouldn't that have been subtracted?
Mayor Trustee Benavides, that is correct. That should have been subtracted. So there will be a correction to that document that I'll provide to Danielle.
Okay, that's all.
You're correct.
Do we need to amend that, the motion?
She's going to amend it.
Okay.
That's
So
what we did last month.
I will amend it
But
and
the
provide a
motion, we
new
need to amend
document.
the motion to.
Well, then you can amend your motion to say that you recommend approval of the bar subject to the required amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the amended resolution 2022-05-01.
I need another second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Now, are there any other questions? Okay, I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Okay. Item C, discussion and approval of the FY 2023 interim budget. CFO Tammy Silva.
Mayor, trustees, before you is the interim budget for fiscal year 2023. And what I'm going to present to you are some changes based on feedback after the workshop and the retreat that we had with the trustees. So I'm reading some of Administrator Simon's notes as to what we changed in the budget. I'm not going to go over every line item as we did that in the budget workshop, but just highlight the changes we made from that workshop to what you're seeing before you tonight. And so one of the biggest changes we made in the Department 1840, which is General Administration, is we added a full-time executive assistant. This position will help administrative functions, as well as some of the items that right now are not always a priority, like record management, assisting with some of the magazine and transcribing minutes. So that'll take some pressure off of some of the positions right now that have those duties and just are juggling and have multiple hats to wear. That's one of the biggest items in the 1840 that changed. Another item in the 1840 department in the maintenance of the building and structures, you originally saw it at $140,000 for windows and stucco or solar. That has decreased to $65,000. This is for beginning the window work and also beginning roof and solar here at Village Hall. So those are the two larger items that you will see as a change in the Department 1840. The next item, the next department is Department 1960, which is our facilities department. And in this department, we made a couple changes. One, we reduced our fire base shelving. We did a reduction there, and we also added $5,000 for solar permits as we are going to begin the process of looking into doing solar at Village Hall. So this will allow us to start that process. Also in the 1960 department, in the maintenance for grounds and roadways, we took out the tennis court resurfacing. As we've decided the tennis courts, we can wait one more year to do that, and it was quite a large expense. So that was one of the items that we reduced. We also reduced, instead of completely redoing the barn parking lot, which was another large expense, we have decreased this to just grading the barn parking lot to $25,000. And we will be adding this to the ICIP and ask for capital outlay money here as well. And the last item in this line item that was reduced was the landscaping on 4th Street. We originally had $40,000 for that project. We reduced that by 50% to $20,000 after looking over it and discussing with Maria and some of the numbers we had received on that potential project. Then the next item, the next line item that you'll see a change to, this is in our capital equipment and machinery, which is in the general fund, and it is the 9590 48020. And what you'll see here is an increase. There is an increase for two items. The first one is for a new truck of $44,000. The second is for a street sweeper of $22,000. Both of these items were budgeted in fiscal year 2022. However, due to chain supply issues, we will not be receiving those vehicles and that equipment prior to June 30th. So we are moving the expense from fiscal year 22 into fiscal year 23. We also have an adjustment to the capital roadways, bridges, and culverts, which is 48080, 1019590. And this is the $90,405. This is for Green Valley, and it is the match for the co-op money that we're receiving. And the last big difference that you'll see is in another capital. It's in the capital other category, which is 48900 -101-9590. And here we took out the barn parking lot. This is something that we'll do in the future. We'll be looking for funds to do that in the future. So all that you'll see in this line item is the irrigation for both Edgewood Park and the Del Norte property. So after making these changes, adding the full-time position and making some of these reductions, we're looking at starting the year and ending fiscal year 2023 with an excess of revenues over expenditures of $239,000. As we're looking at this and we're seeing that this is definitely something we can make changes to at mid-year if we see that our GRT is coming in a lot higher and we have the ability to add some of these projects back in, we can absolutely discuss that at that time. But I stand for any questions on the interim budget.
Thank you, Tammy. Before we get to the discussion and questions on the governing body, I need a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
The interim
budget.
budget. Thank you. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion from the governing body? We can go trustee by trustee. Let me start with trustee Pacheco.
Tammy, was there anything else that we had highlighted at our budget retreat that did not make its way into the budget?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, off the top of my head right now, there's not anything. I think the biggest concern that the biggest takeaway was kind of rearranging, reorganizing to make sure that our staff was not overly stressed, and making sure that we had things taken care of here and possibly not trying to cram in as many projects. I think that was the biggest thing. So we did the full-time position. We also added a second part-time code enforcement. And so I think that was the largest item that I can remember. I'll have to get with Administrator Simon on that to make sure that I fully answer your question.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay, let me get to trustee Benavides now.
Nothing more.
Trustee Radnovich.
I just had one question, Tammy. Under attorney's fees in Department 1840, was that just part of it, and that's, 45020, sorry to get detailed about this, attorney fees. It shows a $48,000 loss. I didn't understand why that.
So Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, so that's not Radnovich, that is not a loss. What that is showing is in column B, that is our fiscal year 2022 actuals through March and then annualized through the end of the year. I don't anticipate that we will actually end the year at 188,000 this year. But when we do prepare this, we don't have the actuals through June, so we annualize the last 3 months, and that's based on what we've received through the year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That was it.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to item 11, new business. Discussion and approval to adopt ordinance number 286, repealing Chapter 4, Article 5, alarm devices and systems from the Village of Los Ranchos Codified Ordinances. Public Safety Liaison, Fred Radosevich, please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Trustees. That's the ordinance that we talked about at the last meeting. We're back in the 80s and 90s. We passed a lot of ordinances to limit responses to alarms because there was a lot of false alarms.
Right.
The village passed that ordinance and never set up a process to implement it. And every so often we get calls from people saying, where do I register my alarm? And we tell them we don't. So we discussed it and we really decided just to repeal the entire ordinance because we've never used it.
Thank you, Fred. Before we get to any discussion from the governing body, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve to adopt ordinance number 286.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Now, is there any discussion from the governing body? Being none, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Great. Item B, discussion and approval to adopt ordinance number 287, an ordinance amending the 2013 codified ordinances of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, Chapter 3, Business Regulation, Article 3, Franchise Agreements, Section 3, to incorporate a new franchise agreement with New Mexico Gas Company, Inc., repealing ordinance number 141, PNM Gas Services of New Mexico Municipal Franchise Ordinance enacted July 10th, 1996. Attorney Nan Winter.
Mayor, trustees, this was put on the last agenda for advertisement. That's been accomplished. This ordinance, because it's a franchise, will have to be advertised twice. It doesn't mean it'll appear one more time on your agenda. It just means it'll be published twice in the Albuquerque Journal pursuant to state statute. Again, this is a franchise agreement, essentially a gas company's rental of the right-of-way through the village. I think the biggest acknowledgement, or the biggest accomplishment we got in this contract was an increase in the rent.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, Attorney Winter. Before we get into questions or discussion, I need a motion.
I will make a motion, Mayor, to, just a second, sorry. I will make a motion to approve ordinance number 287 for the Gas Company of New Mexico.
Thank you. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Now, is there any discussion from the governing body? Being none, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Item C now, discussion and approval to advertise ordinance number 288, an ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 4 of the Village of Los Ranchos Codified Ordinances regarding excessive noise. Director Justice.
Mayor, trustees, you will notice that this ordinance is relatively short and does not make a lot of huge changes to our noise ordinance. Just going through in the order, we're proposing to increase the decibel level by 5 decibels both during the daytime and the nighttime. This would be the lowest decibel level that it basically equals us to the lowest decibel level of Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque for both daytime and nighttime. Right now, I mean, even with this small increase, it's still fairly easy to violate the noise ordinance. But the issue with raising the decibel levels any more than that is that they start to become, they appear pretty unreasonable. Industrial, commercial, decibel level requirements for other communities actually do reach into like the more harmful levels. And so at this point, it's still easy to violate the noise ordinance. It's just not going to be as easy just with the decibels. There are some additional clarifications within this, just some specifics to help code enforcement actually enforce this. We're specifying A-weighted decibels. There's both A and C weighted decibels. We could factor in both. A-weighted is what's most commonly recognized by human ears. So we're going with that one. And we're also just specifying how we measure the noise using just an approved sound meter. And then in addition to that, we are creating some exceptions to our noise ordinance because as Pedro Radosevich mentioned, you know, we can violate the noise ordinance if we were at the property line at this point. So some of these exceptions that are suggested are that the noise ordinance won't apply to unamplified human voices, daytime garbage collection, noise generated by school activities, noise generated by occasional outdoor or indoor gatherings during the daytime, and the daytime for us is considered 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., or a municipality-sponsored event. We're also going to provide an exception for temporary construction that has a building permit with us. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Justice. Before we get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve to advertise ordinance number 288.
I need a second. I would remind the governing body that a second is required, not a vote, but to open the discussion. Therefore, I will second. Okay? Is there any discussion from the governing body at this time?
Yes, but you can go first? Okay. So I get it. It's just to advertise, and advertising is fine, but I'm going to have a problem with this, and I can tell you. You know, when we went through the application for the winery, and people complained about the noise, and I think, you know, I believe people from our staff said, well, we go out there and we measure it, there's no issue. And that's at the lower level. And so I want to ask, do we really measure the noise level? And I know we measure it at the boundary. Let's start with that. I'm going to have more questions than just that, but let's start
Go
with
ahead,
that.
Fred. Perhaps you can help us, or Director Justice, whichever one wants to.
So Trustee Benavides, Mayor, Trustees, I just would like to clarify for the winery issue specifically, our code enforcement did not go out there during the duration of while the winery was a public hearing. The winery staff would go out there and say that they measured it themselves. We did not verify that. The neighbors complained about noise. They did not necessarily submit any documentation to us. The only recent noise measuring that we've done is for properties that are not related to the winery. There are some commercial properties, there's a couple of residential properties, but it's not specifically for the winery.
How long has this ordinance been on the books?
This ordinance in this version has been around since 2001. Our previous, our first iteration of our noise ordinance was done in 1989. The first iteration of the noise ordinance did not have any decibel levels.
So it's been here, it's been our ordinance for 21 years, is that what you're saying? And how many times have we violated that ordinance? Has somebody violated it?
There's a difference between violations that occur and what is measured by our code enforcement officer and then taken to court as citations. Daily, there are probably plenty of violations that occur that our code enforcement officer isn't out there standing at the property line for every property. Overall, we've had a handful of code enforcement violations that have been escalated to citations. Back when Cottonwood Classical School was around, folks complained about the kids at recess, and they were correct. Those kids were violating the noise ordinance. So we've had a handful of them.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, so a couple other issues. You know, I think there's different levels for different times of the day, and the 55 dB that you're wanting to change it to is, I believe, from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. 6 a.m. is pretty darn early, you know, and I think about leaf blowers and stuff like that. And I know somebody's going to say, well, you know, a conversation, you know, you gave us the example of a conversation being about 50 decibels. But, you know, if that was happening next to my bedroom window, that would be a lot. And so I always say, not all noises are created equal, right? There's noises in nature that are fine. Children playing, for some reason, we've evolved to accept certain noises. Leaf blowers, no. Somebody gave us somebody came to one of our Board of Trustees meeting, might have been like January, February, that talked about helicopters, you know. Here's the thing, is I think we can single out different sources of noise, as you have for dogs, for example. And let's call out some of those things that we find offensive. And I might be more accepting of this. And the 6 a.m. time seems to be too early to me.
Trustee Benavides, Mayor, Trustees, I will say that the current times, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. they're current right now. The only difference is 50 decibels versus 55.
I'm sorry.
So just looking at the ordinance, the stuff in black is what's current. So currently, 50 decibels at 6 a.m. is okay.
Yes, and we're raising it to 55. And that might not actually be okay either. I don't know. And this is, you know, decibels work is a logarithmic scale, so it's kind of misleading. You know, there could be in terms of the energy and the noise, you know, there's quite a bit of difference between 50 and 55, right? But yeah, I mean, dogs. I mean, obviously we singled out dogs barking. Nobody likes that. But you know, there are other noises that we have accepted. A squeaky air conditioner can drive somebody nuts, and it may be below 50 decibels, right? So I think we just do a better job with this. Maybe we can't capture everything, but there are some things that we do know about that other municipalities have singled out as being very annoying. And I think about leaf blowers, and you know, I think there's some municipalities have said, you know, we need to go to electric leaf blowers, which are much quieter. And, you know, you can phase things out, but I just think this is very dangerous as written.
Mayor.
I caution everybody.
Trustee Benavides, and I'm in total agreement with you. The previous legal firm that we had representing the village would not allow us to enforce our current noise ordinance because they didn't feel it was constitutional. So we've been trying to work on some things since then. A lot of municipalities have just excessive noise. They don't have decibel levels. And we had a complaint about a year and a half ago of a person mowing their lawn. The neighbors were complaining that they were mowing their lawn and it's too noisy. Well, that technically violates our noise ordinance. And I don't know how to get around that. And one of our biggest fears is how do we enforce something that is not enforceable? And so what we're trying to do is, and again, I don't have an answer. And Tiffany and I have been working on this, trying to figure out the easiest way to do this. And maybe Ms. Winter can give us some advice on this, because if we don't try and do something, my belief is we're putting our code enforcement officers in jeopardy of violating somebody's constitutional rights when they go out there and cite them on some of these things. Or we're going to get the complaints that Mr. Radnovich is out mowing his lawn at 8 o'clock in the morning and the neighbors calling, complaining.
Well, right now he can do it at 6 a.m. That's a little too early.
And that's the problem. And the big issue is,
don't do that.
Again, it's by the letter of the law, that's violation of our noise ordinance. And you know, and so we're just trying to figure. And I'll be glad to. And I can tell you, Tiffany, we'll listen to any ideas you all have, because we don't have any. But we constantly get complaints about the noise. That's probably the biggest complaint code enforcement gets.
So here's the problem. You get complaints about the noise, and yet you raise the dB level. Yeah.
Exactly, because we're trying to make it somewhat more reasonable to enforce. I guess I'm missing my point.
That's why I asked about the violations at 50, and I think you struggled to find very many violations. So I'm a little puzzled here.
Okay, so any other questions or comments from the governing body?
I have one, Mayor.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So the biggest noise generator in the village is Paseo del Norte. When we went out to visit the Del Norte open space, and I worked on that project. I did that project in 1986. Those noise berms that were put in as part of the project are definitely not what they were when they were first put in.
Well,
They've eroded.
They're not even sound walls. They're not sound walls.
They were intended to be, Mayor.
But they're not.
Well, but they were.
Sure, I'm sure they were.
Yeah, and that was in writing in the agreement we had with NMDOT.
I'm sure it was.
And so I'm wondering, I mean, I don't know that this should be put in this codifying document. But I bet if you took a decibel reader to Mr. Craig's house, you'd find that it was way over that level.
For sure.
And I think the village spent a lot of money. I don't remember the amount, but the village spent a lot of legal money working on requirements for Paseo del Norte with the NMDOT. And that was in 1980. I'm talking about Paseo. I believe you. I believe you. I don't know that Second Street is I think that's a county road, not a DOT road. So the county may also, but my point though is that we have an agreement that we signed with the NMDOT, that our mayor signed back in 1986. And I don't think that agreement is being kept by an MDOT because they manage that roadway. And so if we're going to go after George Radnovich for mowing his lawn at 6 in the morning, I think we ought to go after NMDOT for, and I have nothing against NMDOT, I don't. I work with them all the time. But that agreement, and I talked to Administrator Simon about this, that agreement is no longer being held up by NMDOT, in my opinion. Now, I didn't go measure noise levels. I didn't even measure the height of those berms, but they have eroded away. And the landscaping isn't what's protecting us from noise, it's those berms. And so I think the village, either we include them in this ordinance or we go back to the drawing board about this ordinance to include that agreement. We either include them in this ordinance or we go back to our original agreement with NMDOT back in 1986 and get them to uphold that agreement. That noise level is just atrocious. And I live a mile from Paseo del Norte. I bet you could come to my house, and measure decibel levels and hear it.
Okay. Any further questions from the governing body? Go right ahead.
Make a comment? I mean, would it be worthwhile at this point to maybe do a little more research on maybe what some other communities are doing? And it's hard because I don't know that there's another community that's who we are and where we're at. You know, I mean, we are surrounded by urban community, right?
Unfortunately.
And I don't know that there is another community that we could even look at that would have something that might work for us. And not only that, I mean, we are a farming community. So, I mean, do we also not include tractors or, farm equipment in this? I mean, this could just spiral out of control, I think.
Okay. Any other questions from the governing body? Okay. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
No.
Okay. Trustee Benavides?
No.
Trustee Radnovich?
No.
The motion fails. The ordinance will not be advertised. Okay, let's move to item D. Discussion, selection, and approval of the 4th Street Phase 2 alternative to move towards 30% completion of engineering and design. Let's start with Ms. Maria Rinaldi.
Mayor, trustees, quick overview of the project, how we've come to this point. In March of 2020, the village RFP'd for professional retainer services. And in July of 2020, we received an award on a competitive application for state road fund monies for preliminary engineering and 30% design on this project of $482,000. As a result of that award and the RFP for professional engineering services, the village selected BHI for this project in February of 2021 based on several proposals submitted. The scope of our contract with BHI is for preliminary engineering 30% design. That includes a right-of-way survey to establish the boundaries and the identification of any existing encroachments within the public right-of-way. A topography survey, which creates the 3-dimensional map, locates all surface features, natural and built, and all elevations throughout the project area. It includes a utility exploration of subsurface and above-ground utilities and includes coordination with utilities on potential impacts that may have to be moved, relocated, or improved upon prior to or during the construction phase of the project. A drainage study and preliminary drainage report. Basically, what capacity of stormwater management do we need to have within that corridor? subsurface physical properties of soil in the geotechnical investigation, for pavement recommendations, and for any groundwater issues. Environmental investigations and documentation, which include a preparation of what will become a notice of no impact on any environmental or cultural properties, and that even includes a categorical exclusion, which includes, which states that there are no impacts, biological impacts, for example, endangered species. No impacts on historical, cultural, archaeological, or significant historic properties or aspects within the community. And it included significant amount of time put into engineering alternatives analysis. This is the review of the potential typical sections, the design scenarios, if you will, to accommodate the multimodal corridor within the existing right-of-way as established in the survey, for vehicular, bicyclist, pedestrian, and transit. The results are the conceptual designs, the exhibits, the alternatives that you have before you tonight. We added to their contract, near the end of this contract, we added the analysis for roundabout within intersections at the corridor, for roundabout, and warrant analysis for signalization adjustments. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation. So, once the alternate is selected, it will allow the completion of the 30% design to include plan and profile sheets and to finalize the opinion of probable construction cost. Okay? We are already fully funded for 100% design, again, based on a competitive application submitted to the New Mexico Road Fund. We have $750,000 to complete the final design. We have construction funding of only, at this point, $2 million. If we phase construction into 3 phases, phase 1, Pueblo Solano to Ranchitos Road is just about $9 million, of which we have 2. The application that we are submitting for federal funding is for $27 million, which is the entire amount of estimated probable cause at this point from Pueblo Solano to the village limits. So that's where we're at, and that's a process that we've been in for the past more than 14 months. And all of the resulting engineering documents we have in our possession and are just waiting for the final plan set of 30% design. And I'm going to introduce Jeanette with BHI, who's actually going to present the alternatives to you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees, Maria. We have 2 issues on the 4th Street project to discuss with you this evening, and which pedestrian alternative to take to preliminary design and which type of stormwater storage to take. And that would close out our 30%. We're going to take 2 roundabouts to preliminary design at Ranchitos and El Pueblo. That doesn't mean we're committed to roundabouts at those locations, but if we take them to preliminary design, then we can see what all the total impacts are, and we can make a decision at that point of whether to go back to a traffic signal or to install a roundabout. Traffic-wise, roundabouts work just fine. The road diet works just fine. We did a signal warrant analysis at Ortega. I didn't include that, so I'm just throwing it in. The signal was not warranted at that location per the manual and uniform traffic control devices. Next slide. This is the schedule that we have been working towards. We have mostly completed the corridor study. We just need the final recommendations. We have done all the environmental surveys. We do not have any environmental issues with this project. So we anticipate getting a categorical exclusion. And then we have not really started the preliminary design because we need to choose an alternative before we do that. And then that closes out the current contract that we have and then we would start final design. Next slide. These are I'm going to go through the 5 alternatives that were presented at the public meeting and a previous council meeting. Alternative 1 is the trail on the west side. The study had 5 total alternatives. This one provides a bicycle path and a pedestrian path, but only on one side of the road. There's only 60 feet of right-of-way, and there's not room to put it on both sides of the road and maintain drainage that's needed and an area for power poles outside of the roadway section. It does provide landscaping. The biggest disadvantage is it is only on one side of the road. You could potentially install bus shelters similar to what was done with the previous Phase 1 project, but they would only be able to be installed on one side of the road. And this alternative had a lot of utility impacts. Next slide, please. So alternative 2 was the same alternative except mirrored on the east side of the road. It has the same benefits. It does have less utility impacts on the east side, but it has all of the same disadvantages of only being able to do bus shelters on one side of the road, no facilities on the west side. And then if you can go to alternative 3, please. Alternative 3 is sort of a meandering sidewalk. The preferred is to put the buffer of landscaping and between the road and the sidewalk. However, there are some areas where that would be difficult to do, and the sidewalk would have to come in adjacent to the road, and then it would go back out again. This does provide a good pedestrian path on both sides of the road. It allows 4 bus shelters on both sides of the road. A bus shelter would be one of those locations where the sidewalk could come in next to the road so that there would be room for a bus shelter. It does have landscaping. It does not have any bicycle facility. Sidewalk is a higher construction cost than an asphalt trail. The curb limits opportunities for water harvesting from picking up the drainage off the roadway and helping to water the landscaping. We could put curb openings in, but it has a minimal amount of water can be picked up into the landscaping that way. The next slide, I apologize. In your presentation, I put the wrong picture into alternative 4. So I have given Danielle the correct drawing, which she's showing on the screen now. I had copied alternative 3 twice. So alternative 4 is similar to alternative 3, except instead of having the stand-up curb and gutter on both sides of the road, it would have an estate curb, so stormwater could just flow across the estate curb into the landscaping buffers. We would have like standpipes in those that would, with just a grate on top that would pick up excess water in those and take them to water storage locations. You would still need to do stand-up curb and gutter at locations such as bus shelters. And there might be a few other places, like you would need to stand-up curb and gutter approaching the roundabout, because the islands in the roundabout are what keep the deflect traffic and keep the speed limits very low. And then I have alternative 5. And the next one, this alternative is to do sidewalk and bicycle lanes on both sides of the roadway. It does provide both bike and pedestrian facilities, which is an advantage. It would connect to the Bernalillo County's preliminary plan to put bike lanes and sidewalk north of Ortega. Ortega's kind of in the village, but then half the road is in the county and half the road is in the village just north of Ortega. So it's kind of, that's where they're planning on stopping their project. There would be no landscaping with this alternative. There is no bicycle path with the Phase 1 project south of Pueblo Solano, so at that point, bicycles would just be In the travel lane, there would be no room for bus shelters unless you purchased additional right-of-way. It does have the highest construction costs because it's the most concrete and asphalt. And it also has very high drainage costs because there is no ability to pick up the water and use some of it. It would have a very extensive storm drain system. The one thing I do want to say is you do have the opportunity to do a combination of some of these alternatives. For example, if you wanted to do alternative 5 just north of Paseo del Norte, so you could connect the bicycle lanes to the trail along Paseo del Norte, we could do a combination of that and then something different south of Paseo del Norte. So that is an option. If you can go to the next slide, this is the results of the ranking that we received at the public information meeting. We received input from 10 individuals, and of those 10 individuals, 8 of them preferred alternative 4, one preferred alternative 3, which is the standard urban section, and one preferred, I'm looking for it here, it was the bike lane one, number 5. So that is the input that we received. There's a clear preference from that group for alternative 4, the sidewalk with the estate curb on both sides. And this alternative is also supported by the design team and the village project manager. And then the other issue that we would like to discuss tonight and get some input on is, if you can go to the next slide, is the stormwater storage. There's 3 locations that we're proposing. This corridor is very flat, and so water doesn't flow very well from one end to the other. And in addition, if we phase it, we would need storage in each phase of the project. So we proposed 3 locations, and at these 3 locations, we have 2 options of what to do. So if you go to the next slide, option 1 is to put in a pond detention system. This would have 6-to-1 side slopes. We would build in ADA accessibility. You could use something like this as a park. It would be potentially 4 feet deep if there was a 100-year storm, which is a storm that on average comes every 100 years. The cost of this kind of alternative is $200,000 to $250,000, but the cost does not include park improvements on top of it. So the other option, if you go to the next slide, is an underground detention system. This has more flexibility because you can use it as a park, you could use it as a parking lot, you could use it as farmland. And I say farmland because one of our lots is north of Paseo del Norte, currently owned by the village, and it's currently farmland. The cost is a little bit higher, but like I said, there is more flexibility with that. So we need just some direction of where to go to with the preliminary design, and you can have a different choice at different locations.
So Jeanette, thank you very much. Does that conclude the presentation by the 2 of you?
Yes.
Okay, before we get to discussion and any other discussion from the governing body and people from the audience, I need a motion.
So what, the motion will be made to do what?
Select the alternative.
Okay, I'll make a motion to select the alternative.
Which alternative?
All these questions. Well, I'm going with what we received as feedback from who we received feedback from. I think that it's going to be a lot more moving forward, but I'm going to say alternative 4 that was presented to us by Danielle tonight, not the one that was in the packet.
Now, alternative 4, the picture was not correct.
I apologize.
Do you have some other copies of alternative 4? Or?
It's up there.
So it's up there.
I just provided it to Daniel.
That's fine. Okay, so now I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, before we get to discussion from the governing body, I do have one thing to tell everybody. I had a meeting with Cynthia Schultz, the CEO of the woman-owned contracting firm Bradbury Stam that built the first Phase 1 project. And I had two reasons to meet with her. Number one, I wanted to get our Phase 1 project finished. It's still in its last stages of being finished, and she assured me that they were gonna make it a very high priority, and Maria, they were out there this week, right? Okay, so it looks like she's gonna follow through with that promise. The other question I asked her, because Maria and I went to Transcom in Las Cruces in April, and we saw the contractors get up there and tell everybody about no labor, supply chain shortages, fuel costs have skyrocketed, and the contractors who were, involved in a lot of these projects said that the costs have gone up sharply. So I wanted to hear from Cynthia Schultz directly, what has been your experience? And she told me, over the last 2 years, the construction cost has gone up 15% per year, 30%. So my recommendation to the governing body is that we move judiciously but carefully, understanding that that cost may be $27 million today, but it's going to be a lot more, 5 years from now, and it may even be unattainable 10 years from now. I don't know. So anyway, at that point, I'm going to go ahead and start with each trustee and have them ask their questions and discuss. Let's start with Trustee Pacheco.
I guess I just want to make sure that we're all under the same understanding of what we're doing tonight. I mean, we are truly just picking an alternative to kind of get started, right?
To get to 30%.
To get to 30%.
We're not at 30%.
We're not saying, I'm not saying that by asking for alternative 4, that is necessarily the route we're going to go, because there's going to be additional input, right? It could be that, I don't know, we start with alternative 3 and then transition to alternative 4, but that's going to be over time. This really is just going to trigger allowing us to get started and to start to move forward, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So I think that we all need to keep just in our mind that this is just the trigger to get things started. It is not the end-all, be-all. This is what 4th Street's going to look like. I had other questions this week with regard to landscaping, and we don't even know what that's going to look like. Is there the possibility of adopting a part of the road? I think there's so many things, so many options out there that we can't, there's no way that we're going to be able to come to some kind of agreement tonight. I think after our meeting with NMDOT, they made it very clear that, that we need to get moving or we're not going to move, just based on the cost of supplies and construction and labor, all of that. So I think from my standpoint, this is just the point we need to be at to get things moving forward.
You raise a good point, Trustee Pacheco. What I heard from NMDOT was there is a significant amount of money available, and the community that asks for that money and is moving in a direction that will at least get the project going is going to have the best chance to get that.
Exactly.
That's what I heard.
I heard the same thing.
Okay.
May I comment on that?
Yes, you may.
One of the applications that I'm submitting is for the Transportation Project Fund. We received $750,000 last year, which is what's going to pay for the final design of this project. This application is due May 23rd. I've completed that application 2 weeks ago. I've held it for a decision tonight for the simple fact that it behooves us to be able to say we are moving to final design. If we're still in this phase, that does not bode well for funding of future phases in a timely manner to access the significant stimulus money at the federal level.
So Maria, let me ask this question. Once the project gets to 30% design, there's still a lot of review to be done, an additional public meeting and all of that. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Okay.
The scope of the project, when awarded under task order, will include all of that. And we will pay specific attention to additional public input as the phase goes forward.
And not only that, we haven't signed a task order for final design, correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, there we go. All right, so let's move on.
And
Any
can
more
I,
questions? Go
with
ahead.
regard to the underground or the stormwater, do we need to kind of have a direction for that tonight as well? Okay, so I should amend my motion to say that I'd like to move forward with alternative 4, with option 2 as the underground detention system, as,
At all 3 locations?
oh, see, now we've got to get really specific.
What we could do, if I may, is that we could at least pick it for the first phase, which is what we're most likely to get construction funding for, the Pueblo Solano to Ranchitos Road. So that would be the location within the first phase.
Okay, so I would then still agree that it should move forward with option 1. And again, just to clarify, because it shows a parking lot here doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a parking
It's
lot.
going to be something.
Right. But this just seems to be the most effective, in my opinion, in moving forward.
Okay, so we still need a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thought I had.
Okay, now I'm going to move to trustee Benavides.
Sorry.
Mayor?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned the underground system with the parking lot, but you said option 1.
I said option 2, I think.
Oh. You
Did I?
said-
Did I?
you said-
What?
you said
Yeah, you did say option.
Okay, sorry, so, okay.
I knew what
let's-
you meant.
Let's back up.
I did too, but.
Okay, so I am proposing that we move forward with alternative number 4 as the roadway and option, 2
There you go.
as the underground detention system for a minimum of the first phase.
Okay, now, are you done with?
I'm
your-
done.
Okay, so trustee Benavides.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm glad we're selecting alternative 4 because, you know, that came out on top with public comment. It was also my favorite anyways. So I'm a little confused about whether alternative 4 has a meandering sidewalk. Is that yes or no?
So in general, we will try and maintain the buffer with the landscaping between the sidewalk and the road.
Yeah.
But if you come up to, say, a bus shelter, then you have to put in a stand-up curb and have the bus shelter, because for example, the bus shelters used in phase 1 are very nice and they're at least 8 feet wide.
Yeah.
And so you need more room to put them in. So you eliminate the landscaping at just that location, and then you have to have a stand-up curb there.
So, okay, and I understand what you're saying, and I'm fine with that. So the stand-up curb, so I was under the impression that this had a curb, but with drop inlets.
No drop inlets, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, not drop inlets, but I said it correctly. It had recessed curb so the water can flow into the landscaping, right?
That is
Right.
correct.
So where it's not recessed, it would be a stand-up curb, is that,
Yes.
okay.
So just to clarify, if I may, when I say drop inlet, I'm talking about the 5-foot by 5-foot concrete box with a grate on top.
Yes.
Built into the curb on the edge of the road.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do with this alternative is have the water flow into the landscaping buffers, and then when the water exceeds that, we would put a stand-up pipe with a small grate on top of it, which is a much smaller facility to pick up water.
So I understand that, and I got a little confused because you said something about where the bus stops are located, we would have a stand-up curb, but the stand-up curb would mostly be there. Okay, except for where it's recessed.
And that's kind of what Councilor Pacheco was saying, is like when you get into the nitty-gritty of design,
Yeah.
you have to kind of go between things to make it fit.
Okay, that's great. So, question about the roundabouts. So I think you're suggesting that we just go ahead and include it because it's easier to take it out later, right? That was the argument?
We need more detail to see what the impacts of them will be.
Well, so would you be looking at like a one-lane roundabout or a two-lane roundabout? And I'm thinking about El Pueblo where it gets a lot more traffic.
We're thinking about one-lane roundabouts, and we have analyzed El Pueblo, and the one-lane roundabout does work. Because we're doing a road diet in conjunction with this, and
Okay.
4th Street will be one lane in each direction.
Okay. I think you answered my question, so thank you.
Okay, trustee Radnovich.
I have a couple questions, and then I'd have a prepared statement I would like to read. How big is the pond at Roll Road? How many acres is that?
1 acre.
It's 1 acre. And is just the $200,000 to $250,000 in your cost estimate at this point?
Yes, well, actually, so we don't have a detailed construction cost estimate yet. We have just the study estimate, and
So it doesn't go into this kind of detail?
It doesn't go into this kind of detail.
Let me offer this comment, though, trustee Radnovich. It was my understanding in our previous discussion, Jeanette, that you had a contingency in that number you gave us, and it's a pretty big contingency. So I think the answer to your question is it's in there. I believe it is.
I feel like at a study level, you should have at least 25%, probably
Exactly.
30.
Exactly.
Just, it covers some increase in construction costs, things that are unknown.
May I add a comment here as well? Trustee Radnovich brought this to mind as well. That acre purchase of that land that's privately held now, that is the subject of our request, the roundabout right-of-way acquisition and the acquisition of property for the pond. That has been submitted as our congressional earmark request.
We're being very creative.
FYI. Yes, we're trying
looking for
all
money
these different
everywhere.
funding sources. So the acquisition of the property for both the roundabout and the storm drainage facility is not part of our construction cost estimates.
So I have a statement that I'd like to read, Mayor, and I don't look at this project the same way as the village is looking at it. And I know we've been, it's been the subject of, so I'd like to pass this out.
Of course.
It's been the subject of a design or a concept for 14 months, but I've only been here for 3 or 4, I guess. 5 this month, yeah. So I'd like to read this statement because I think it goes to who we are as a place as opposed to an engineering study and where I think we should go. So the village of Los Ranchos has a real opportunity to build on what the Phase 1 project of 4th Street offered, but I fear that that opportunity is being squandered. The great places of New Mexico have something in common. They offer looks into their identity and culture through everything they do, including their streets. For example, take places like Santa Fe, Mesilla, Corrales, Taos, or even Truth or Consequences or Ruidoso. Or go further to distant places like Carmel, California, or even Marfa, Texas. They all have one thing in common. They care about how they portray themselves to the outside world. And they show that on their streets, buildings, parks, and other environments, and they show that on their streets, buildings, parks, and other environments. I don't think we're showing that. On the flip side, take places that have and I wanted to say one other thing about that. It goes further than this. The town of Mesilla in southern New Mexico did use DOT money, but they did a really culture and identity-driven project.
I see it every month. I see it every month.
There you go.
Yeah.
On the flip side, take places that have let highways and vehicular traffic dominate their streets and thoroughfares. They are built to exacting nationwide standards of the FHWA, and in our case, the NMDOT. They too have one thing in common. They all look and feel the same, designed and built to homogenize standards of everywhere, quote unquote. NMDOT projects in places like Belen, Bernalillo, Las Cruces, and many other villages and towns in New Mexico look like roads everywhere else. They don't say, in our case, Los Ranchos, or in their cases, Belen or Bernalillo or Las Cruces. And I gave two examples here, pictures of NMDOT designed roadways. I'm not criticizing DOT or those towns and villages that I just mentioned at all. When we don't take advantage of the intrinsic attributes of the place, in this case, Los Ranchos, and infuse those attributes into the project, I just see it as a missed opportunity. I am also not panning our great NMDOT for the work they do. They do important work, and I have worked with them many times in my professional life and in the past, and in many of these places, actually, and they do excellent and necessary projects. However, they require that all of their projects meet their standards. Unless the places that they work in push to think outside of the box. Los Ranchos must think outside of the box of traditional engineering and portray our village the way we want it to be seen to the outside world, especially if we want our economic development efforts to be successful. We need to speak to our identity and our culture. That is the crux of my comments. We need to think big in everything that we do, and I think what we are doing is not thinking big enough. I do have another comment. In New Mexico, we often try to stretch our dollars. Instead of doing things right the first time, we appear to be doing that in phase 2 of 4th Street. I think it would be better to include the landscaping, the pigment in the sidewalks, harvesting water in all the phases of the project, not to say that we can't afford it. If we need to, shorten the project for phase 2A to Los Ranchos Road or somewhere else, and include the things that set us apart from the other places like our famous Los Poblanos has. I also understand your point about costs rising. I've been involved in rising costs myself with $7 million projects that have turned into $15 million projects, Mayor, and that's in the last 6 months. I also understand your point about costs rising and that it's a valid one. But don't fall into that old argument that we'll do this plain vanilla now because we can't afford it, we can't afford more, and do less of the road. I'm sorry, I didn't read that correctly. I also understand your point about costs rising and that is a valid one. But don't fall into that old argument that we'll do this plain vanilla project because we just can't afford more. Do less of the road, but do it right and do a shorter reach. You probably aren't aware of the public survey that we did for the phase 1 project or the voices that we documented in public meetings and workshops about what the people of Los Ranchos wanted in 4th Street. What it showed from an incredible amount of public input is that the people of Los Ranchos want 4th Street to portray our rural roots and our agrarian past, as well as providing a safe and well-lit road. It also showed that people wanted retail that says Los Ranchos and restaurants that speak to who we are. If we make the street look like San Mateo Boulevard in Albuquerque, all we are doing is just bringing a little more of Albuquerque into our identity. Just a little bit more. Lastly, regarding the public process, I am sorry to say this, but I think that we have not really done a good job of publicizing the project, especially if it's going to really take between $7 million to $30 million in total for the project. The people deserve more. I've heard a number of our constituents, and they didn't even know that the last public meeting was happening. It wasn't in the primary voice for the village vision. It wasn't in the Albuquerque Journal. Anecdotally, I would say that the design team, the agencies there, the trustees and village employees outnumbered the public in our public meeting. If that statement's wrong, we didn't really let the people speak. We had answers for everything, but I think the answers kind of shut people down rather than listening. I know I felt that way. Some of our constituents told me that they don't want to hear from that we don't want to hear from the people. That this is why we didn't advertise and try to get more citizens there and know how their money was being spent. Please prove them wrong. Take your time, do it right, and don't rush this thing through. Listen, I realize all of your arguments, all of our arguments about the money, but this doesn't look like Los Ranchos. And it
I
also,
disagree with you completely.
you can, Mayor, but I have my own opinion.
Of course.
This also doesn't really give me enough information to make a decision tonight. Because I can't tell what this is going to look like in front of, say, the hairdresser studio at the Blue Door, or say the Rule Road pond. There's nothing in the plans or the documents that I've seen that shows me exactly what that road's gonna look like. And I will tell you that 30% plans in my world, and I understand the DOT world, show what this project's really gonna be. It shows where there are changes in elevation, or it shows where there are sidewalks next to the road versus sidewalks away from the road. Or it shows in concept where the landscape's gonna go, or if we're using pigmented concrete, or if we're using pavers. And this really isn't enough information for me to make a decision.
It's not 30%. It's a long way from 30%. It's not 30%. That drawing is not 30%.
But you've done the drawings.
No.
You told me, yes.
No.
You told me you did the drawings at the last meeting.
We have sketches, layouts, but we have not done 30%. That's what we wanted to choose an alternative to take to 30%.
So what are the sketches?
Well, we have a report here, but it's just like colored lines, and it shows the impacts and the widths and how far that is.
So that is the kind of thing that would allow me to make a decision tonight, Mayor.
I understand. I guess the real question is, in my mind, George, and I understand exactly where you're coming from, and you make a lot of great comments in your statement, but we must select an alternative to move this project to 30% design to answer your questions directly. That's exactly where we are. We want to answer every question that you have, along with the other members of the governing body. And to get there, we need to select the alternative. You don't have to vote for it, but there's 3 members of the governing body here, and I'm going to ask them to make a decision. And time, quite frankly, is running out on us. So the cost of construction is skyrocketing.
It is.
And
I mentioned that myself.
You just told me about the 15 million. And so in any event, I'm asking the governing body to make a decision to move us to 30% design. And in my view, we should, in fact, I expect to be answer every single one of your questions. That's what I expect as the mayor. So anyway, Maria, do you want to say something?
I have one comment, Mayor.
Please.
I have to clarify what NMDOT's role in this process is.
Please.
And I have to say that Phase 1 is an NMDOT project. So this idea that we cannot build amenity into an NMDOT project is belied by the fact that Phase 1 is an NMDOT project. NMDOT did not design the project in Bernalillo. The town of Bernalillo did, based on its funding. NMDOT does not participate in design. NMDOT makes sure that standards and specifications for improvements in the public right-of-way for traffic, vehicular, pedestrian, and transit are met. That's the phase we've been in now. This tells us that we have the ability to put roadway improvements into an existing facility with their money, and that we guarantee we will not conflict with underground utilities. We will provide adequate ADA access. We will address pavement design based on geotechnical reports, lessons learned from Phase 1. That was an NMDOT project. This will be an NMDOT project that does not mean it will look like Bernalillo. It will look like Los Ranchos. Our driving document is the 4th Street Revitalization Master Plan. From the first day I walked into this building, that has been my Bible. This project will look like it belongs in Los Ranchos, and it will be an NMDOP project.
Thank you, Maria. So at this point, first of all, George, do you have any further comments?
I do.
Please, go right ahead.
I'm not saying that it can't be done with NMDOT monies. I made an example that La Masia was done with NMDOT funding. It was, but there were only $250,000 worth.
Oh, no, there was more than that. It was over $1 million. There really was.
There
That's
was,
Yes.
and 1 penny of state and federal money makes it a state and federal project.
Sure. I don't have enough, maybe with this I would, but I don't have enough information to vote.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand. Now, let me move to the next step. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
There's been some discussion about.
Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Betty Titchich. I live at 6724 Edgewood Drive. There's been some discussion about how lovely other cities look in their planning and everything. And I'd like to say, before you did phase 1, I came to several meetings, and you showed a lot of beautiful renderings of how 4th Street was going to look. Well, the bones of that are there, but the difference is the signage. In those renderings, there were not big flags advertising CD oil. I mean, if you don't do something about the signage on the street, it's never going to look beautiful or quaint or whatever you're talking about.
We will take care of that. I guarantee it. We will take care of that. Okay?
But the first phase?
It's not done. It's not done, okay? It's just not done. We still
Well,
have
is there
more
a
work to be
sign
done.
ordinance?
Now, are you saying that we need additional sign beyond what?
No, I'm saying,
Signs of the businesses.
I'm saying that the business signs need to be either monument signs, there needs to be some uniformity,
That's a whole different problem. A whole different
but
problem.
the street is never going to look good the way the signage is now.
Okay.
If you go to beautiful cities, one reason they're beautiful is there's no signs all over. They have monument signs.
I was just in Chandler and Gilbert, Arizona. I see exactly what you're talking about. This, unfortunately, we're a little ways away from that, but we can get there. I think we can get there. I actually think we can.
Could you explain to me why it's so difficult to have a sign ordinance that's enforced? Why is it difficult? I just don't know. I'm just not being
Tiffany can
sarcastic.
probably answer that question. You deal with it almost every day. Tiffany, go ahead,
Yes.
please.
So Mayor, trustees, we do enforce our sign ordinance. We don't specify the content or style of signs. We only specify the amount of signage that someone's allowed to have. And we typically don't allow for banners long-term, only seasonal or for opening. So if it is a banner that you're talking about, we can definitely send our code enforcement officer out there. But if it is business, permanent signage, either building or freestanding, the only thing that we enforce is that they get a permit with us and that they meet the dimension requirements,
Then maybe you need a new sign ordinance.
potentially.
Okay, I can point out, if you haven't even driven down 4th Street, it's pretty obvious that, I don't know what it is, but there's a store that sells CBD oil. There's flags and banners all over the parking lot, out onto 4th Street. I mean, it's been there for years.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
thank you. Okay, is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito. I'm really confused on what these alternates are. I was at the one meeting that we had. I didn't see any place to vote. I don't know that we even had that many people that were there. I didn't vote. I mean, my preference on what is being shown is the west side trail, because our schools are there, our businesses are there. I'm not quite sure, is this a meandering path? I mean, are we attempting to do urban design by meandering? I'm confused, so I'm very confused. A lot of my concern is for life safety, and I'm not seeing this in any of the designs. I walked across the 4th Street Bridge again, and I had again this morning, and I passed the city bus. This is the second time in a week or so. It's frightening. I'm not sure I have the courage to walk that close to a bus anymore. But life safety in all of this, I think, is extremely important. I think Senator Trustee Pacheco is asking for Paseo del Norte's, for our path on Paseo, on the north side of Paseo del Norte to be fixed. It's very low. The south side, it was very low when it was built, and we had a bicyclist killed. It was an awful accident because of high speed. Paseo was built inexpensively in Larry Larrañaga's terms. It was built cheap, and immediately it was a failure. I mean, it was 20,000 cars a day. They hit that the first day. We had to redo Coors second, and even I-40, I believe. It still is a very high-speed, dangerous road. I don't think we need to go cheap. We need to really look at life safety. If it's alternative one is more expensive for utilities, then let's cut it up into 4 phases. I don't know. Doing anything to the open space, it's not a farm. Absolutely not a farm. This is open space there at Miller Feed, and I think we've had problems with what our open space is. We have a huge ponding area on the east side of 4th that could be used. There's no need to go into our open space. I do like the El Pueblo and 4th. I think we've, Trustee Benavides and I have had some discussion, and even Trustee Rael. That's a great parcel. Doing the other ones are good. Create some amenities, I think.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
My apologies, but if you wouldn't mind wrapping up your thoughts.
Okay. And like I said, we've only had one meeting, and I never got to vote. I am concerned. I can't even find our sign ordinance, by the way. I looked for it. I thought we were redoing that, but I cannot find it anywhere on the village website. So I don't know where that is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. We have a motion and we have a second. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
No.
Thank you. Motion carries. Now we're going to move to item F. Pursuant to 3-11-6A, parentheses 1, NMSA 1978, subject to the approval of a majority of all members of the governing body, the mayor shall submit the names of employees to the Board of Trustees for confirmation.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt, but you skipped item E.
I did. Okay. I apologize. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. Thank you for reminding me. Item E, discussion, ignore what I said. Discussion and approval of resolution number 2022-05-02. A resolution proclaiming dangerous fire conditions and extreme drought conditions existing within the village of Los Ranchos. banning open burning and imposing restrictions on the sale and use of fireworks within the village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque. Fred Radosevich, can you make the presentation?
Thank you, Mayor and Trustees. What you have before you is a resolution that we would hope you would pass. In doing some of the research for this, it's quite shocking. Number one, that New Mexico is considered to be in a mega drought. We've been in a drought since 1999. 90 or 100% of Bernalillo County is an extreme drought right now. So what we're asking the Board of Trustees to do is to pass a resolution. We're not allowed to ban fireworks. The state does not allow us to do that, but it allows us to limit the use of them, especially ones that go in the air. And that's all this is. It'll be good for 30 days. We will probably come back to you again in the June meeting to do the same thing. But if you've been watching the news, which I'm sure everybody has, the fire up in Las Vegas has now burned 270,000 acres. And the one in the Jemez Mountains has burned 45,000 acres. If we had a fire in the Bosque right now, we would lose hundreds of homes. And there's nothing anybody can do with that wind that's coming about. So we really need to restrict and again, try and get people to understand really how dry it is. And one of the things in looking at the long-term forecast or short-term forecast, however you want to look at it, there's no relief in sight. And so we're hoping that you will pass this resolution. And again, we plan on, unless things change in the next 30 days, coming back at the June meeting again and asking you to redo it for another 30 days. And I'll stand for any questions.
Before I get to that, Attorney Nan Winter, do you have anything else to say about this? Because you've done a lot of research on this.
Mayor, Trustees, I did visit with the New Mexico Municipal League to confirm that what we could ban and what we couldn't ban, everything that we can ban is banned in this ordinance.
Okay.
Resolution. That includes bottle rocket type things.
Right.
Displays and open burning and campfires. So there is some banning going on in here, and that is permitted by state statute.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-05-02.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Now, is there any discussion from the governing body? I'll start with Trustee Pacheco.
I have none, Mayor.
Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, I'm wondering about clarification and how we advertise this to the community. So in regards to clarification, I think I understand what you mean, but I wonder if people will by reading this. Banning open burning, people buy these fire pits. What does that not include that, or does include that?
It includes fire pits, to be honest with you.
Okay, I'm just thinking we might want to.
It includes any open burning whatsoever.
Okay, and I'm fine with that. I'm just thinking people might think that's exempt.
And Mayor and Trustee, we will get this on the website. It'll be in the Village Vision when it comes out in June, because again, we hope we'll probably, unless we get a lot of moisture in the near future, it'll be there again throughout July. So we'll be getting it out in every way that we can.
And we're just talking about, in regards to fireworks, we're just talking about the sale, because we cannot prohibit fireworks except
You
for
can
bottle
ban
rocket.
certain kinds, though, and it's in here, correct, Attorney Winter? You just said that a moment ago, I think.
Yes, Mayor, Trustees, you can ban the sale and use of missile-type rockets. We did not ban the sale, we banned the use of.
Okay.
Basically, anything that goes in the air.
So when does the next Village Vision come out?
Early June, actually, or maybe mid-June. It's in June.
So it's kind of late, right, to advertise? Is there any
Well,
other?
it's gonna be on our Facebook page, our Instagram, our website. It's gonna be.
I'm thinking maybe we ought to post it out on 4th Street too, or someplace.
Trustee Benavides, I believe the deadline for the Village Vision is Friday, the 13th. So if this resolution passes tonight, we can include that.
Actually, we can get it in the next vision.
Okay, I just, Yeah, you probably want to get that notice out like now, right?
Well, we will.
Okay.
Mayor and
we will.
Trustee Benavides, the other thing we're looking at is several years ago when we had an extreme drought, we had a lot of fires in the Bosque. The village actually rented message boards on Rio Grande Boulevard.
That's correct.
And cautioning people on the use of fireworks and the open burning and stuff.
Great point.
And
Okay.
we're looking at
would
that
be
also.
smart, yeah. So, yeah, I'm, you know, that's all I have.
Okay, trustee Radnovich.
I just have a couple things, Mayor, or actually one thing.
Sure.
Maybe two. Why did we, if we passed it on the 11th of May, and it's only, it says the aforementioned bans, restrictions shall be effective for a period of 30 days, why not just extend this in the first place to the 4th of July?
You can't by law. You can't by law.
Mayor, Trustee Radovich, the state statute only allows you to do it for 30 days at a time,
I see.
which is weird, right?
That's really weird.
It's
Right?
weird, that's for sure.
It doesn't make sense in this case.
Right.
Especially. Okay.
Mayor, Trustee, the only thing I could think of, there's a strong fireworks lobby in New Mexico.
Yes, there is.
There is a very strong one. No other questions, Fred.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'm going to call for the question, call for the vote. Before I do that, I'm going to ask, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Emphatically, yes.
Okay. Item F, pursuant to section 3-11-6A, and parentheses 1, NMSA 1978, subject to the approval of a majority of all members of the governing body, the mayor shall submit the names of employees to the Board of Trustees for confirmation. Michelle S. Austin, Administrative Assistant, Planning and Zoning. Danielle?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and trustees, item F is requesting confirmation from the governing body for Michelle Austin as administrative assistant in the Planning and Zoning Department. This is a full-time position that provides administrative support to internal and external stakeholders. She will be assisting with business licenses, permits, zoning applications, and other essential tasks, including support to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Michelle has an extensive background in administrative support. She's a native New Mexican, having lived in Syracuse, New York for some time and returning to the North Valley where she grew up and went to school. We are thrilled to have Michelle as part of our Los Ranchos team. With that, I ask for your approval of confirmation.
Okay, before we get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion.
Mayor, I'll motion to, if I can get to this, I'll motion to pursuant to 3-11-6A that we approve hiring Michelle S. Austin as administrative assistant and planning and zoning helper, assistant.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion from the governing body? Being none, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. Being none, I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. We now get to informal discussion. Before we get to each trustee, I want to hand out a memorandum that was prepared by Josh O'Halloran that perhaps can help the governing body understand our position on the trees. So let's go to Trustee Pacheco.
Informal is where we're at.
That's correct.
I think I asked my question during a previous hearing, so I think I don't have anything further.
Okay, Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, I'm sorry to do this to you, Fred, but I'm going to, you don't have to come up, but I'm just going to keep hounding you on the police patrolling the area and what would it take to get that done? And you know, I know Trustee Alan Lewis made a pretty good point about, hey, we don't want to go back to having our own police department, $9 million or something like that. And besides, we were already partially paying for our county sheriffs anyway. So I'm just wondering, what can we do to get police officers, and the county sheriff could be fine to do that. Just what would it take? Is it more money, or, I mean, I don't want to have to be calling them all the time. I mean, it sounds like a squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of scenario, but.
Mayor and Trustee Benavides again, and again, I've invited Captain Romero to the next meeting.
That'd be good.
And him and I have been meeting, and again, staffing levels are low everywhere, and I'm not making excuses, but that's just a simple fact. When you're 35 deputies down, you can't hire enough. They're on priority calls, but again, they've been, and I just got the monthly report for April. I haven't gone through the whole thing yet, but they do what they call welfare checks, where they do actually checks through certain areas of town, and they did probably 60 of those last month in the village. So they're out there. I mean, I'm saying, I live in Rio Rancho. I never see a cop in my neighborhood. I haven't seen one in 17 years, but I know they're out there. So we'll be meeting with Captain Romero and trying to come up with some better ideas on some of the things that we can do.
Well, while you're up there, let's talk about speed cameras for a moment as a tool. You know, I know Albuquerque is starting to implement these things. I don't know how much they cost, but it seems like that would be such a great tool to slow people down. Do you have any input on that?
My personal opinion or my professional opinion?
Professional
I'll give you both.
Okay.
People don't have to pay it, and they don't pay it. It's a losing money proposition to most cities. Rio Rancho, they get about a 40% payment rate. They work for that, for that short time, and then people say, you know what, I'm not going to pay that $100 ticket, and they can't go after them. They can't put it on your credit report. They can't do any of that.
Does it slow the traffic down?
No, I don't believe it does. What slows traffic down is when you have a police officer out there working traffic and they get cited, and that slows them down, because you get the speed camera, when you get it in the mail 30 to 60 days later, I forgot where I was at last night, much less 30 to 60 days before that.
Well, I remember the red light cameras. Everybody hated those, and we got a ticket, but we paid it.
Yeah. But there's some things and again, we're looking at some things on the speed boards to do some things, different things with them. I think Keene just told us at the staff meeting yesterday, we had ordered 6 new speed boards.
We're getting them.
They've been on order for over a year.
Right.
But see, here's my point then. You're saying speed boards slow down traffic, but they don't give tickets.
They slow it down because they see the speed flashing up, so they slow down. On a speed camera, you don't see nothing, except the flash maybe down the road. But
no,
it's something we can look at, absolutely.
Okay.
If that's something you want to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank
you. Yeah. One final thing is, I made a comment several Board of Trustees meetings ago that I'd like to put together a committee to work on the AC ordinance.
Okay.
And revise it. I haven't really done much with that yet, but I'm wondering if I could use the village hall as a meeting place.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do you want who would you like from the village to help you establish this committee?
So there'll be an open, help me to establish a committee?
Yeah, because it's got to be put together, and there has to be some administrative tasks and all of that.
Certainly Director Tiffany Justice would.
She's a busy girl.
Yeah.
So you better ask her.
I will ask you, but I know you're busy, but the way that I can work however you want it, meaning there'd be an open invitation for you, or we can give you reports, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So, thank you. That's all I have.
You bet. Trustee Radnovich.
I just have a couple of things, Mayor. Fred, did you actually, and you don't have to get up, the statistics show that those tickets, quote-unquote tickets, that you get from speed cameras, only 40% are paid? Wow.
Again, because you can't hold anybody accountable.
Why?
Because it's a civil action. And they've, over the laws and the courts have ruled that you can't, you can't turn it over to the credit bureau anymore. There's a lot of things you can't do. And again, I mean, if that's something you want to look at, by all means, we can explore it. But I'm telling you from the law enforcement standpoint, I think you can't put them on any state highways because the state prohibits them.
They don't in Arizona. Huh, interesting.
But anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they have toll roads where you can automatically get ticketed. if
That's
you
right, in Dallas.
Or charged if you get on a toll road, and it's all camera and license plate.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just a little confused by the whole thing.
It's a different state.
Yeah.
Go ahead, trustee Radnovich.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is the VC zone. I'm very worried about the height that we're allowing on buildings in that zone. And I just, I think the ordinance, the code that we have now is it needs a little bit of work. And so if the village ever decided to take another look at that, I would be very interested in helping with that. I'm not necessarily against three-story structures in certain areas, but I'm pretty worried about what's going on in our VC zone, and I think we ought to take another look at it at some point.
Well, let me offer this comment, and I asked Tiffany, Director of Justice, this question a while back. What are the heights of the buildings Palindrome is proposing in the 12.5 acre village center? What are the heights? What are they? Do you know? Can you tell us?
Mayor, trustees, I don't know that exact number off the top of my head, but it is compliant with what we allow.
Okay.
I believe they were going to do 3 stories for the buildings in the first initial phases, but 3 stories with a maximum height of up to 48 feet.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to stop that kind of development, Mayor, but I think in the future, we ought to take another look at it. I think I think that boat's sailed on what we're building in the village center and the other project that's going to go on there. But I think we ought to take another look at it because I think the people of Los Ranchos are going to they're going to be upset at that. And so I really think we need to look at it in the future as well.
Any further comments? Okay, I need a second to adjourn. I need a second.
I'll give you a second.
Okay, we have
I'm
my
just kidding.
second. Meeting is adjourned. It's 10:18 PM. Thank you, everybody.
All right. I don't know if we had a motion to adjourn.
I
So it doesn't matter?
It's okay, it works.
I'm going to sign the proclamation and give it to you. Congratulations, guys. I'm out of state.
Oh, Berea.
Is this your? But you won't have to call me. She's the mayor pro tem.